Any attempt that can take us to a just peace, but it has to be a peace that the Ukrainians can support and be part of.
AfriForum says it will be visiting the U.S. soon on what it describes as a mission to salvage the African Growth and Opportunity Act. This is according to the Afrikaner Nationalist Group CEO Kali Kriel. Kriel's comments follow the issuing of an executive order by U.S. President Donald Trump withdrawing financial aid for South Africa based on misinformation that white-owned land is being grabbed by the government. Kriel says the U.S. cancelling AGOA will hurt all the citizens.
We need to speak to the US in the interest of people in this country, and it is AGOA and PEPFAR. We know PEPFAR assists people with HIV/AIDS. We know AGOA, and what the US says in AGOA, if you're going to abuse human rights, if you're not going to respect property rights, and you're going to act against the interests of the US, you're going to lose that. So our effort is to save AGOA by saying to the US, tell South Africa they are contravening this.
KwaZulu-Natal MEC for Cooperative Governance Thulasizwe Buthelezi has confirmed that 6 people have died in KZN due to heavy overnight rains. Buthelezi was addressing members of the media at the signing of a memorandum of understanding between social partners in Pietermaritzburg. The aim of the MOU is to work with NGOs and some private companies in a disaster response. Buthelezi says disaster teams are on the ground to help the survivors of these rains.
Tragically, since last night, 6 people have died due to the heavy floods in Durban, in areas around Gwamakuta, where 2 members of a family, the house collapsed while they were sleeping inside. In Umlazi, 3 people died because of the mudslides. In Eshowe, a young child was swept away while trying to cross a river.
DA's Gauteng leader Solly Msimanga says the province's economy will deteriorate drastically if Premier Panyaza Lesufi continues to stay in office. This came out during a press conference which the DA in Gauteng has termed the True State of the Province address. The DA's TSOPA comes ahead of the State of the Province, which will be delivered on Monday despite the postponement of tabling of the national budget. Msimanga says due to Lesufi's poor leadership of the province, many investors are no longer willing to invest in the province.
We have heard enough of his unrealistic promises, his lack of proper implementation, and we have had enough of lack of accountability that seems to be informed here in Gauteng. The Gauteng economy is suffering and investors are not comfortable in investing in it due to the numerous challenges that the Premier Lesufi's government has failed to address. The case in point is his promise to clamp down on the corruption and the crimes so that the economy can grow. Yet he refuses to release the crucial reports that we've been asking for.
And finally, lawyers for South Korea's suspended president have told his trial for alleged insurrection that he is the victim of an illegal investigation. Yoon Suk-yeol has become the first sitting South Korean leader to appear in court on criminal charges. The accusations relate to his short-lived imposition of martial law in December. The BBC's Rachel Lee has the details.
The trial is focused on allegations that Mr. Yoon illegally declared martial law and attempted to stay in power through unconstitutional means. And prosecutors reveal that they have over 70,000 pages of evidence. Now, his lawyers are arguing that his arrest was politically motivated, while prosecutors insist his detention is necessary, given the severity of the charges.
Recapping the top story this hour, the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Minister Espen Barth Eide has supported a call by other European countries saying that Ukraine should be part of any peace talks that is aimed at ending the war in Kiev. Headlines at 3:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kulufelo Defo.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Bangladesh 228 all out after 49 overs against India in the Champions Trophy, and Sundowns, Pirates and Stellies to learn their fate in the CAF Champions League and CAF Confederations Cup draw. More details at 3:30.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're a sealing and partition company. I like OUTsurance. They have that personal touch. In addition to the great service they give me, they've also saved me and my company 3,266 rand per month. Guys, make that call. It's well worth it.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matriek mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So, yesterday when we spoke about the budget speech, no budget speech, for many people it was like the end of the world. It's like, what's going to happen next, okay? And the reality is, in spite of the various adjectives and names people attached to what they felt about the budget speech not being delivered, tomorrow is another day, and tomorrow is today. And it is a reflection of just how quickly things move on, that we know the budget speech is now set for the 12th of March. That's one thing. But for the president of the country and the leadership of the country, they have another job to do, which is the G20 summit and the build-up to that, which is in earnest happening in South Africa right now. And that really is what takes center stage today. So I'm Ashraf Garda. This is the National Pulse, and welcome to the show. And as I said, the pulse rate racing from the budget, no budget, to the G20 summit. You can connect live 086 000 2032. You have the option to WhatsApp us, text or voice note, 30 seconds each maximum on a WhatsApp, please. 0614 104 107. And you can right away tweet us on the X platform, tag SFM Radio and myself, Ashraf Garda. Use the hashtag, as always, the National Pulse. And if you've got a picture of wherever you are listening to the show from, well, I'd love to know where you are. So send us a picture. Where you are, what is it that you're doing? I know what I'm doing. First things first, on a very, very busy day, I can tell you now. Let's talk to Sophie McQuena, who's the SABC News International Editor. And we talk to her because she is exactly where the country should be focused on, which is the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting. Sophie, as always, good to connect with you. Hi.
Thank you, Ashraf.
Well, you are where I want to be, so you are our eyes and ears, right? So give us some context firstly. There's the G20 summit that we talk about. That happens in, I think, November, if I'm not mistaken, right? What then is the importance of this G20 foreign ministers meeting that is started now in South Africa?
Well, quite an important one. This is a meeting of senior diplomats of member states of the G20. And therefore, they are the ones who are able to be some sort of representatives in terms of, if one may say, a clearing room where you are able to discuss what's likely going to be the focus of the summit in November. And therefore also dealing with some issues that are likely going perhaps to derail the summit, so that come November, the leaders are focused on a program that has been agreed to by member states. And therefore, this is very important, because if you don't do that as early as possible, you end up exporting all the questions and the queries and the tensions to the real summit of heads of state and government. And therefore, international relations or foreign affairs plays a very important role to deal particularly with those global political issues that might derail the discussions, including derail the meetings of finance, including derail the meetings of other contact groups. As you know, that there will be lots of meetings ahead of the November summit.
Yeah, and just very quickly on that November summit, just in 2 lines, what actually takes place at that summit when they finally get together?
at that summit, they adopt a program of action or decisions in terms of what the G20 is saying. You know that it was started 1999 when there was economic challenges, and the intention was the central bank governors and ministers of finance to come up with a way forward how the world can deal with that economic challenges in the Asian region. And later there was a decision taken, it was in 2008, that escalated this to heads of state and government because there are many issues to discuss. You know that President Bush hosted that summit, and from there you'd recall that it was UK, and here we are with many other countries that have done the same at the heads of state and government level. And therefore, when they elevated it to heads of state and government, that's when you saw those burning global issues playing itself on the margins of the G20 summit, while the G20's intention in its inception was to deal with the economic and global challenges. But now everyone focuses on the heads of states because this is where you see the big issues being discussed. Like now, the issue of South Africa, the role of US, the war in Ukraine, the Middle East. These are the big global issues that are likely going to play itself and the margins of the big summit. So deal with these issues now. As we saw earlier on before the start now, we saw lots and lots of bilaterals, countries meeting so that they can come up with a position, particularly in relation to the war in Ukraine, because that's where now you saw last night, early hours of this morning, South African time, the statement from the President of the United States of America directed at Ukraine, an ally of the European Union. And so it's that kind of issues that are likely going to derail the meeting. So deal with them here and finish so that come November, you are not dealing with those issues.
I suppose that's the example many would have said about yesterday's budget speech, to say deal with the issues long before the last few hours before the budget. Don't answer that. That's not what we're talking about. I do notice, however, Sophie, and you can tell us about this, I see the president, our president, has been doing his walkabouts. Lots of people rushing to greet him. So he's there now. Give us a sense of the atmosphere and the type of reactions that you're seeing in terms of interaction with the president, but also effectively with South Africa.
You know what? I can't ignore what transpired yesterday in terms of his body language. He looks confident. He is all smiles. Even when he was walking out now, he was able to greet me, and he walked, even coming in, he walked from the holding room to here. Now he's back at the holding room where he is going to meet some of these ministers to iron out some of these issues. You also know that even the UN is here, the DSG, Amina Mohammed is here. The WTO DG is also here. So he's having quite a number of bilateral. After those bilaterals, he is going to speak to us a short doorstop, and I think the focus will be on this meeting, where to from here. And then secondly, he will touch on the issue of the budget, because I think he wants to explain what happened, and as a head of state, in terms of what must be done, because you know that there are lots of interpretations in terms of what happened yesterday, where to from here, and the implication of what happened yesterday. So I think he is going to use that opportunity to clear that also.
What about the Americans?
The Americans are represented by an official from the embassy. As you heard, they were there. You saw the flag. So all G20 countries are represented, but others, they've sent their foreign affairs ministers. You have 35 foreign affairs ministers who are here. for G20 and those invited countries, for example, Angolan Foreign Affairs Minister, because Angola is the current chair of the AU, and now the AU is a member of the G20. So you also have those countries like Algeria, Nigeria, that South Africa has decided to invite Egypt. So the attendance, truth be told, it's huge. Foreign Affairs Ministers, 35 of them, when you have G20 having 20 countries, and then 20, but it means you have 15 other foreign affairs ministers from other influential countries.
Okay.
So the attendance speaks to there's huge interest in this meeting.
As I would expect. Just two things before I let you go then. One is, is there a formal agenda for today? Outside the bilaterals, what is the formal agenda today?
The formal agenda is to discuss the theme of the summit as communicated by South Africa.
Okay.
What countries would want to discuss in December? Key issues around development, around transformation of multilateral institutions, the financial institution, issues of climate change, issues of solidarity, issues of respect for international law. So those are the key issues, and the developmental agenda, particularly being pushed by the developing South, because this is the last meeting hosted by the developing South. The coming meetings will be the developing North. It will take many years again to see a country from the developing South hosting the G20.
Point taken.
It will be a consolidation of that.
And Sophie, lastly, very, very briefly, in terms of yourself doing your own walkabouts, were you able to pick up what any of the other countries are saying about South Africa? And I say that only because, as you know, South Africa is very, very topical globally at this point in time.
I think America underestimated the support South Africa is enjoying globally. The European Union member states are fully behind South Africa. And then you have your usual friends like Russia, like China. You saw Sergei Lavrov arriving. You saw Wang Yi arriving, the Foreign Affairs Minister of China. And you saw Algeria, Nigeria, Egypt, Angola, even the most powerful countries on the continent being here. So I think America will go back and reflect in terms of we can't lose the space to influence direction.
Okay, I wonder if you're right about that. Let's leave it at that. Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor, thanks for your insights here on this very important coming together of the G20 delegates at what is called the G20 Foreign Ministers Meeting. Significant. Your thoughts, your comments, whatever it is you want to get off your chest regarding the G20 and anything else that you think moves the national pulse. This is, in fact, the National Pulse.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We in the eye care industry, we're saving over 1,200 rand a month. To all the business owners, you've got nothing to lose by giving OUTsurance a chance to quote on your business insurance. It's true to say that you always get something out with OUTsurance.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover, or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. With Ford's Blue Sky offers, get a new Ranger XL from just $5,899 per month, including our optional service plan, only when financed through Ford Credit. 10% deposit, prime list 4.75%, 40% residual. Visit your trusted Ford dealer today for Blue Sky offers, where our Ford Family Guarantee comes standard. Limited time offer while stocks last. Ford Credit is a registered credit provider and an authorized financial services provider. T&Cs apply.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, so we have one take on the G20, well, overall the G20 summit, the entire concept, and today's G20 foreign ministers meeting. And we thought, let's get another take on it with Professor Patrick Bond, who's a political economist and distinguished professor of sociology at the University of Johannesburg. Prof. Bond, thanks for your time and welcome to the National Pulse once again.
Oh, it's great to be back with you, Ashraf. Thanks.
Good. So we thought, Sophie's given us one perspective. You have your own perspective, in terms of the overall importance and impact of the G20 summit. And we'll talk about South Africa's role in that too.
Yes, the overall G20 project begins certainly back in the late 90s with the financial crash of the middle-income countries like South Africa at that time. But it really takes off in 2008, and we have to just understand what it was that the G8, because at that time Russia was part of the G8, and then it became G7 after 2014 when he was kicked out for having invaded Crimea. But do you remember back in 2008, the world financial system was cracking up, and that was why the G20 combined the rich countries, G7, with this new layer. And the most important, with the most foreign reserves, China, but also Saudi Arabia, Mexico, Argentina, and a few others, Indonesia, and then Turkey and South Africa. So it was essentially a combination of the G7 and the BRICS. And the point about that is that that function of bailing out Western banks with the middle-income countries, the new rising economies, hasn't really changed. It is what I would call an imperial project, imperialism from the West, now needing a step up and some new allies. And I don't think, even though there are such incredible tensions that exist within the BRICS and certainly Donald Trump's White House, I don't think that basic functions change. That's why Cyril Ramaphosa is doing his best to keep the project together.
And therefore, to bring back to South Africa, then, in terms of South Africa effectively being the chair of the summit this year, and therefore today is significant because all of these foreign ministers from around the globe present, excepting maybe the U.S. foreign minister, we know that, right? From a South African perspective, what would they need to ensure that not only the world benefits, and South Africa is seen to be able to be this in a position as a country that facilitates the world benefiting, but South Africa benefiting directly too?
Well, there are obviously elites who would benefit, and we sort of have a huge number of meetings going on. We academic elites certainly get together with our G20 colleagues and things like the Think Tank 20, and we have the Youth 20 and the Civil Society 20, Labour 20. So there's a lot of, let's say, the higher layers of society that can go on trips, invite friends, get together. But I think from the standpoint of ordinary people, if you've got Donald Trump now trying to, in a sense, sabotage, we just learned that the Treasury Secretary, the Finance Minister, Scott Bessent, due to come to Cape Town next week, is also, like Marco Rubio, the Foreign Minister, said, no, I'm not coming. So we're now looking at a situation where the far right wing of U.S. imperial power, that is the Trump project, MAGA, and it's isolationist, it's xenophobic, it's Islamophobic, it's racist, it's anti-African. We know all these things is becoming so obvious. But to me, Ramaphosa may be making a big mistake by trying to keep the likes of Marco Rubio and Donald Trump and Elon Musk happy and invite Trump for a game of golf, take off time, and hopefully, as Trump believes, do something to change land legislation for the sake of Afrikaner farmers, all these sort of myths. Maybe Musk believes if he puts this pressure through the G20, then Starlink will come in without a black partner. But it all looks very incoherent, just as bad as it did yesterday with the budget, that President Ramaphosa is not keeping the center, and the group that's meeting today doesn't include the likes of Sergei Lavrov or Annalena Baerbock, some very important foreign ministers. It's really a second-class effort.
Okay, second-class effort, yet very well represented, right? And perhaps if I move forward, I mean, you often speak about, what I'll talk about is the establishment, but then you get many others on the periphery of the establishment. Do you find that, summits like this perpetuates the strength of the establishment versus those on the outside?
Indeed, that's the whole subject of the weekly seminar that we offer to the public called G20 from Below. And I think that's the essence of saying, well, if the G20 is imperialism, that is Western power and the need that they had originally to save themselves from a financial meltdown, but it's also sub-imperialism. And then you sort of say, well, aren't the BRICS against this? And aren't they the bottom up? No, it looks like the BRICS have been assimilated. And there are obviously big frictions, like Ukraine versus Russia invading Ukraine, or Israel's genocide. Those are obviously frictions within it. Sometimes they're called antagonistic cooperation by the theorist of this sub-imperialism named Mauro Marini. But I do think, Ashraf, we have to take quite seriously the dilemma that there's terrible lack of legitimacy at the top levels, and the G20 is some sort of legitimating effort that's not really working. Aside from the bailouts, I can't think of very much. They gave a little bit of African debt relief during the COVID crisis, but ultimately on the very big issues of our time, like the climate catastrophe or potentially another pandemic, Donald Trump's just walking right out of the UN FCCC, out of the WHO, and now it looks like out of the G20. I think it's time for Ramaphosa to consider an expulsion of the United States as a way forward. Maybe we should have a move of the nation's offices to Nairobi, which is one of the three big cities, secondary cities.
That would be fascinating. So you're saying, in fact, South Africa should push for the expulsion of the USA from the G20 in the light of all the things that have been said before. Of course, you're going to get a pushback against that to say, what about the business deals, including, of course, the AGOA story, which means cutting out the philosophical issues. It has got to do with rands and cents for the average South African.
But that's going to go anyway, right? That's we can say goodbye to that. And as these tariffs go up, and as the antagonisms or the invasion of Greenland or the invasion of the Panama, as these things are real, not just some sort of fantasy, as ethnic cleansing of Gaza gets underway, well, you'll be surprised. There will be a global movement against Trumpism, against Elon Musk, our own homegrown kind of fanatic. And I think it is important to say to the rest of the world, maybe we need to do what the Hague Group did on January 31. You remember, Ashraf, that was where 9 countries, led by South Africa, Malaysia, Colombia, said we will defend the International Criminal Court against the U.S. sanctions being put on ICC. That's what I think. That's the spirit. And I just wish instead of a damn game of golf with a cheater, notorious cheater, Donald Trump, Cyril Ramaphosa would get tough.
Okay, got that. Lots to consider. And that's how we talk to you, Professor Patrick Bond, political economist and distinguished professor of sociology at the University of Joburg. He said lots of things don't have golf with Trump, but in this case here for South Africa, effectively expel the USA from the G20 if you are able to do just that. Anyway, right, let's get your thoughts very quickly. Michael in Gqeberha. Hi, Michael.
Your Professor Bond is quite a biased one and always on one narrative. But I just want to leave that there. Look, the world is not run by summits and G20s and this. It's run by who has military might and economic might. Those are the ones that call the shots. So this thing of summits and gathering and it's just a talk show to take pictures, and that's all what it is. It solves nothing. It does nothing. Those who make the moves, the real powers, are those with economic might and military might. That's it. If you don't have these two, you're just around to come and take some pictures. That's all what it is, really, basically.
All right, Michael, thanks for that, Michael in Gqeberha. Well, listen, Patrick Bond, I wouldn't say he's biased. I would say this. He has a very specific point of view that we want to reflect, and we've done just that. Sophie Mokoena, we spoke to earlier, gave a more broader mainstream position, and that's our job, reflecting, in many cases, multiple views as possible so that you are as well-informed as you certainly can be, right? In fact, there's further comments. Ashraf, this meeting is good and is an opportunity by Pretoria to talk with the USA representatives regarding the issues that are on the table and off the table, and look at the country needs to grab this opportunity by both hands. And also, President Ramaphosa must visit President Trump and explain our policies before it's too late. The last lines is telling when you say must visit. In fact, South Africa has approached their U.S. counterparts and according to 2 days ago, the Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, said they have not yet had a response. So this thing about like must, you can't insist if they don't want you to, meet them. You just can't do that. It is very, very complex, isn't it? Right, 3:30, here's the news headlines with Kholofelo Tefo.
Thanks, Ashraf. In the headlines, this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa, addressing the opening of the G20 Foreign Affairs meeting in Johannesburg, has reiterated South Africa's stance for global peace. He says Pretoria, with its G20 presidency, will continue to advocate for dialogue where there are conflicts and wars in the world. Meanwhile, the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Minister has supported a call by other European countries saying that Ukraine should be part of any peace talks aimed at ending the war in Kiev. This after Ukraine was not invited in the talks. And the Department of Cooperative Governance in KZN has signed a memorandum of understanding between social partners in Pietermaritzburg. The aim of the MOU is to work with these NGOs and some private companies in disaster response. Details at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, an update from Gautrain that no trains will be running between Rosebank and Park Station due to an illegal drilling issue, so a replacement bus service is in operation. The N3 northbound in Bedfordview is slow moving on the ramp to the N12 eastbound at Gululis interchange. The M1 southbound slow moving towards Boysons Road exit. Woodmead Drive northbound has delays towards Maxwell Drive, and Iskempa-Hleli Drive northbound in Pretoria has delays towards Moot Street. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle reported before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park, and Old North Coast Road is closed just north of Columbine Place. In Cape Town, the M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive. Bakencross Street outbound is slow moving towards the elevated freeway. Strand Street outbound is slow moving towards High Level Road. Kloofnik Road outbound is slow moving through Tamboerskloof. And Victoria Road outbound is slow moving through Woodstock. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Okay, Chumi, there's cricket on the go. There's the Champions Trophy on the go. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. A very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Well, India restricted Bangladesh to 228 all out after 49 overs in the Champions Trophy match. Towet Ridoi hit his first ODI century, and together with Jakar Ali added 154 for the sixth wicket. India's pace spear head Mohammad Shami returned figures of 5 for 53 after Bangladesh elected to bat first, but lost the lost half their side in the ninth over. And in terms of India, they currently on 23 for no loss after 5 overs. They need 206 runs in 44 overs to win. Meanwhile, Pakistan opener Fahar Zaman has been ruled out of the Champions Trophy due to an injury. Zaman sprained a chest muscle while fielding at the start of Pakistan's game against New Zealand, and the 34-year-old has been replaced by Imam ul Haq. Then in football, the CAF Champions League and CAF Confederations Cup draw will be held this afternoon at 4 p.m. where South African teams Orlando Pirates, Mamelodi Sundowns and Stellenbosch FC will know their opponents. Sundowns finished second in Group B, winning 2 games in the group stages, while Pirates finished top of the Group B, and Stellenbosch qualified for the quarterfinals in their debut in the CAF Confederations Cup. The quarterfinals of both competitions will be played over 2 legs, with the first leg of the Champions League scheduled for the 1st to the 2nd of April and the 8th to the 9th of April, while the CAF Confederations Cup quarterfinals are set to take place on the 2nd of April and the 9th of April. Meanwhile, Stelli's coach Steve Barker says that they're embracing the congested fixture, unlike some of their rivals who've argued that it's too many games. The side from the Winelands are playing catch-up in the Betway Premiership because of their involvement in the CAF Confederations Cup, and Barker says that this is what they signed up for.
I'm surprised when teams like Galaxy say they are as busy and it's a hectic schedule compared to how many games we've played compared to them. But in saying that, it's important for me to just relay the message to my team and have the mentality that we wanted to play in Africa. We want to finish in the 2nd and 3rd position. We did. So we wanted to be there. It's demanding, it's challenging, but it's what we want. We want to do well in all cups. We want to go far in all the competition, so that means you are going to play more matches. So if you complain about the schedule, then rather don't, aim to want to go to those. So I've just maintained that it's where we want to be, and therefore we have to embrace it. Footballers want to play games. They want to play football matches. We've got a decent sized squad. The more we play, the more everybody plays, the more minutes everybody gets, the happier the team is.
Fully agree with Barker. It's either you want to play in Africa in terms of the CAF competitions, or you just want to play in South Africa.
Well, you're right. I mean, can you imagine? For some teams complain about they play too many matches. Others, fans, their biggest complaint is they don't play
enough.
They don't play continental games. They
Exactly.
get knocked out of the Nedbank Cup very early. So they've got like 2-3 weeks without football. Like, which one do you want? This is the price of success. It's a great price to pay.
Absolutely. A great price to pay. Some coaches are welcoming a very big and congested fixture, and some are just complaining. Then, Cape Town City are looking to finalize the signature of Thulani Serero next week. Serero has been training with the club over the past weeks and flew back to the United Arab Emirates to finish off some personal stuff. If he joins City, it will be a return to the mother city as he left Ajax Cape Town back in 2011. Then former technical director in women's football at SAFA, Fran Hilton Smith, says that Banyana technical team should have used the current FIFA window period to test the team that will be going to the WAFCON. The South Africans are currently training in training camp for 2 friendly matches against Lesotho as part of preparations for the WAFCON coming up in July this year. And Hilton Smith says that a lot has changed since Desiree Ellis's charges lifted their maiden Continental Trophy.
At this point, we need friendlies, yes, absolutely, but I think we need some top competition, maybe some strong overseas team, Sweden, Denmark, or anybody, to try out the team that is going to the WAFCON and prepare with that team for the competition we can expect at the WAFCON, which is going to be very tough. This is a different WAFCON with teams that have made tremendous progress. So I think we need to really, the Federation needs to look at some top competition to prepare the team for WAFCON in Morocco in July.
Well, talking about the WAFCON, Banyana are playing 2 friendlies against Lesotho, as I did say. It's starting, I think, the first one is on Saturday and the second one is on Tuesday, and they're preparing themselves for this WAFCON, basically looking to defend their title. And I guess what Fran is saying, that Lesotho is not good enough to play against to prepare for such a big competition.
And just a word about Fran Hilton Smith. When we talk about women's football in South Africa, forget the coaches, forget the players. There's just one name, and I think unfortunately we'll talk about her in the past tense one day, sadly so and glowingly so, and that's got to be Fran Hilton Smith.
We should actually have her for your...
Well, that's the point. People need to Google her to say the impact she has made on women's football in this country from absolute grassroots community level. I know because I heard her. As 20 years ago, when she spoke about we must have women's football, she's the number one.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, with that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
Borussia Dortmund and FC Union Berlin are both searching for a decent position in the top half. They have a big battle for maximum points. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch Borussia Dortmund FC versus FC Union Berlin on Saturday, 22 February at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
X at SFM Radio, and at Ashraf Garda.
Okay, so while we talk about the budget speech yesterday and the implications it has, and then we talk about the power of the G20 and what that really means in terms of global markets coming together, we then get to another sort of reality, which is education, and in particular, access to education. So we've seen this happen in Cape Town as well as at Stellenbosch universities. Students are protesting because, well, they cannot register due to historic debt and other financially related issues. Today, it's the turn of Wits University. Their students are on a hunger strike, and they've taken their protest to the Wits Great Hall. As you would know, if you've seen Wits, that Great Hall is the most imposing building you'll get at Wits University's campus. And they continue making this plea to the institution's management to allow them to register despite their historic debt. So let's find out what exactly is the position. With me is Lerato Tsitsiba, the Wits Solidarity Sleepover Movement Coordinator. Lerato, thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Awesome stuff. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I suppose as we talk, I mean, even being part of this group of people that you've coordinated, it suggests that your action reflects a pulse rate that's rising, as in something must be done, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Something must be done. I think for the longest time we've just been tweeting and speaking up, but now it's like we need to go out and take action on campus. Yeah.
All right. So help us understand this here. Are you saying that X amount of students are trying to register and they can't register because they have historical debt? That means they've got debt that's owing for a couple of years or something, and they can't register. At the same time, I also know that Wits University we spoke to them a few weeks ago about huge amounts of money they receive for funding to go, and it could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. There are these students who are saying, we can't afford to pay you. We are broke, and so are families. What do we do? But don't deny us the right to learn. That's the one scenario. The other scenario would be from the universities, where they would say, hold it, we get some subsidies, we have to raise a lot of money ourselves, we get other students who pay, others get sort of NSFAS grants, but at some stage we have to draw a line. We need to run as an institution that is appealing and attractive to every student, and for that to happen, we need you to be able to pay off, and if you don't pay, you don't get into the lecture room. Okay, we do have Lerato Tsitsiba once again. Lerato, I was saying, explain what is your issue?
Yeah. So our issue is currently is that a lot of students are still unregistered on our campus. A lot of students are still without accommodation, and this is, yes, we do acknowledge the actions that the university has taken to kind of like raise funds in what they call the council hardship, where they put together funds for students to be able to register. There was also the SRC fund, but those funds were not able to cover everyone, and that's our cry. That's why we're going out to say that there is more that can be raised. There is more that there are more beds that can accommodate students. That's why our stance is that we ask the university to continue to extend the registration period. We ask the university to continue to fundraise for more beds. It can't just end with 800 students. Whilst we know that I personally know a couple of students who have to kind of crash with other students in like their rooms, find a way to like keep them in so that they at least have a shelter for the night, People who are going to classes unregistered, but when it comes to exam seasons, you can't write any exam if you're not a registered student, So that's what we are crying out for, to say that can they at least extend the registration period? Can they fundraise more money? The hardship fund can cover more people. They have the resources.
And what happens if they say they can't? I mean, I know they've raised I can't remember the figures, we spoke about it the other day, but there's also, only so much they can do in terms of raising the funds. So what happens if they can't raise more funds than they've already raised?
I think the sad reality is that if they are not able to raise more money, is that unfortunately a lot of the students will have to turn back and go home, because the NSFAS shortfall, as you know, that NSFAS every year experiences budget cuts, where students the following year are faced with a debt and a huge amount that the university requires that they pay half, and which is like ridiculous amounts. If, for example, like my fees are 120,000 and NSFAS only pays like 100,000, it's like, where am I supposed to get that 20,000? So the unfortunate reality is that if the university is not able to fundraise and get more funds and pull in more funds, is that students are going to turn back home. And we know that for people, for most people, a degree is not just a degree, but it's something that impacts a community. It's not just for.
I
for
completely
one person,
concur with you. So, how many students are we talking about that are impacted by this conversation you and I are having? Like, how many?
I think so far we're probably speaking about maybe 5,000. I'm not sure of the exact number, but the SRC probably has the exact number. But I think, that's around.
All right. So, as part of that protest, what has happened? You've moved yourself into the Great Hall, right? I mean, you what? Is there a sleepover there? Is that correct?
So the sleepover was at Amiktek. That's kind of where we were having our sleepovers. Like, that's by the bus stop. This was just in solidarity with students who don't have accommodation. But during the day, what we were going around doing, it was just on campus, just going class to class, just kind of mobilizing other students as well to say that there are students who are unregistered, there are students who sleep in labs, and we stand in solidarity with them. And the interesting thing with the majority of the people who went out is that they were mostly registered students in solidarity, saying that we can't continue as though it's business as usual at Wits University, while we know that there are students who are unregistered.
Okay. What has been the response from Wits University?
And we're still waiting for that response. I think they went in around 2 p.m. or so they're still sitting in that meeting just to kind of hear what concessions they can make or what demands they can meet.
And just another thought on this. I mean, do you agree with the principle that at some stage the university has to draw a line? That means, I'm not talking about getting funding. Of course, if they can get it, that's fantastic, right? But they can't do the other, which is just say, okay, we won't need any money from anybody any longer. We'll just survive, because they won't. You know that, as we've seen in the city of Joburg and the issues of the national budget, if you don't have money, then your service delivery collapses. So the level of education then received becomes problematic. So do you have any sympathy for that position?
I mean, I think for me, like if you look at how the SRC fund was administered, where the university was prepared to go rent for rent with whatever the SRC is raising. I think for me that signals that yes, there are funds that they can raise and pull together. I think for me that's kind of it. If they were speaking something like the SRC saying that okay, they are willing to raise 15 million and the investor was willing to meet them rent for for that amount. And I think for me that's where I'm like, but this shows that there are resources, So that's the stance where I'm like, why do we have to wait for fundraising to happen?
Okay. Here's the last thing. I mean, let's go back to the issue of fees must fall, because that's really where it came to the fore in the first place, and with his big debts. And at that stage, the president was President Zuma, who I think understood, sort of unilaterally made a decision that say, all of their problems will be solved, all the debts will be settled. I'm paraphrasing, I know, right? I mean, has anything changed since then? Because what I'm targeting here is, what role does government play in all of this, as opposed to, Stellenbosch University, UCT, Wits, we can mention every one of them. They have a limited scope to solve a national problem, and poverty and the lack of and obviously inequality on today being World Social Justice Day, by the way, is a national problem.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the government, because if we're speaking about free education at all levels, it's like, why is it that when it comes to universities, you don't do the same thing? If for like someone like me who's went through schooling, like primary and high school with no fees, and it's like, then why is it that with higher education you expect South Africans to pop out money that they don't have, But I do think there has been significant progress from the Fees Must Fall movement, especially around the conversation as well, and pushing to go in the right direction into a free and decolonized education. Yeah.
Let's leave it at that for now. Lerato Sitsiba, the Wits Solidarity Sleepover Movement coordinator. I'd like to get your thoughts on what do you think about these campuses where the students can't register because they're owing money. On the one hand, the campuses feel they can only do so much. They can't give them scot-free. But on the other hand, the broader issue that can we run the risk of thousands of learners, students, university students who've qualified to go to universities, who are unable to complete their degrees, that much needed gateway to another world of serious growth, right? Because they've got historical debt, because they actually can't afford it. And if you have any solution outside of what government says and the campuses, I would love to know, because we really need some solid solutions on this. Welcome once again to joining us here on the National Pulse.
V up your February with great value deals from Vodacom Business. Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra featuring integrated Galaxy AI. Get it on a Red Business 1.5 gig plan for only 1,539 Rand per month over 24 months. Enhance your deal. Add 69 Rand extra per month and get the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7 eSIM. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom Business.
Right, I'll get to your calls in just a moment, but think about this in the meantime. 48-year-old Zandile loves Outsurance Essential. Well, why? Because it's low-cost insurance designed for older cars. Now, for her 2008 Toyota Yaris T3, she only pays 391 Rand a month. With Outsurance Essential, you get up to 1 million Rand liability cover. That means if you cause an accident, the other car would be covered for up to 1 million Rands. And even more value with a motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns. Get saving with Outsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rands. SMS CAR to 43187. You got that, CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information online.
Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
If you look at the issues of the budget speech yesterday and what that really means, right, I think the issue of university fees and access is such a critical issue. So let's look at solutions here. I don't know. If you've got it, we all need to know. Makwani in Bloemfontein, go for it.
Ashraf?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm interested in this issue of university fees. I'm just wondering if this society could get together. I know that people they're overburdened, but if we look at people who are working and we say, I don't know how many people are employed, but we say each person can donate 10 Rand per month, perhaps making a year's commitment. And if there's 10 million people, then it's 100 million people. 100 million Rand per year. And then this can be used for all universities. You know, we say let's start with accommodation because it's more urgent. And then after that, we say let's fill the gap of those who don't have the full amount. And we go on, but it would need to be organized the way we organized during COVID. But I think that's
so you're saying outside of government? And COVID, you had Solidarity Fund that played a huge role.
Government, 10 Rand per person who can afford it. It's voluntary, but if we make it a national plan, because it's no use always saying government must do this, government must do that. I think we can try something. But if I do it myself, even if I donate 10,000 Rand, it's just not enough. But if we get a mass movement, get somebody who can organize it, get a committee that can look after it, and we account all the time. But I'm just thinking communities, giving an amount which is not hurtful, but can make a difference.
I'll tell you what, I think we must have a conversation, and I'm being very serious about this. Let's see if we can, through our networks and resources, you and I and everybody else listening in, to say, can we do something? There is NSFAS, there are many scholarships. Yeah,
we should do something. I feel for these students, and I just feel that as a person, if we do it in large numbers, it will be more meaningful than, as I say, even if I gave 10,000, it's one amount. But if we do it on a national level, but well managed, well managed with a committee, accountable, with the best intention.
All right, let's move on. Makwali, point well made. What I'm going to ask you to do is just leave your details with Keys, my producer. Just leave it with him. Let me think about it too. And I'm going to open it up to other people as well to say, seriously, what can we do about it, okay? So thank you for that call. That's really what we want. Besides just talking, can we be interventionists ourselves using the National Pulse platform to do just that? Right, Mr. Koza in Virginia, go for it.
Yes, how are you, Sam?
Yeah, very good indeed. Right, what's your point?
I'm supporting the idea of the lady who just spoke now.
Makwadi, yeah.
If really we can do that, I will be the first also to donate. I can do that.
Okay. Let's take
to
your
help their students.
point where I'm going to ask Keith to take your details as well. I don't even know where this is going to go to, but maybe something needs to happen, right? Not maybe, something needs to happen. The question is, how do we do so? So thank you for that call, right? Okay, let's get further comment.
Hi, Ashraf Lukman Captain. I want to know, right, the students that are sleeping outside and accommodation issue, right? Were they confirmed to get accommodation? Were they confirmed to have space in a class? Were that confirmed, or was it just a matter of rocking up? Because you can't just do that. Was there confirmation on email, SMS that there is a place for them for accommodation? There's a place for them in class. I want to know that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have all the answers to that. I would think for many of them, especially repeat students who are in their second year, and I think many of these apply to, because if we talk historical debt, it can't be first-year students, right? Then it's a deposit that you need to pay. It's historical debt. Many of them, I would think, they would have had all those things confirmed, but they're just not registered because they were unable to then wipe off that historical debt. And that's because monies didn't come through. It could be from NSFAS, it could be from somewhere else. They were unable to, and there's no way, I can tell you now, even middle-class South Africans absolutely battle to be able to pay university fees for their children. And we know that. It's a big issue, isn't it? There's further thoughts on that.
Hi, Ashraf. Two comments on the university debt thing. One, it's a problem that is an ideological failure in South Africa, that your life will be solved if you get a university degree, but we see how many doctors don't have jobs even though they have a qualification. The second thing is, I think the format, the way that universities run needs to be changed. Very simple, open the lectures for free, but the exams cost money. If you want to get your degree, you have to pay to write the exam.
Well, I think we know that, and your point about the doctors is spot on, right? But at the moment, would you rather have a university education, or would you rather not have it? Even though those with degrees, medical degrees, are also struggling to get jobs. Can you imagine if you don't have that? Okay? So, yeah, point well made. It's complicated. I get that. There's another comment. I've got Shanti in Vredendal. Hello.
Hi, Ashraf.
Yeah.
I'm actually listening now, and when we studied 30 years ago, we went to the bank, you completed forms, and the bank gave you a loan. We didn't have any infrastructure, no money, nothing. And they gave us the loan. Each year they look at our marks, and each year they give you money again until you finish studies. Then you start paying it off. Why can't we go back to that?
I think many people do that, Shanti. I think people do that, but
But it's difficult. You cannot get a loan from the bank now. My daughter went to the bank to try and get one. No, she could not, because they don't want to give it anymore. So somehow the bank should come back to the party. There were student campuses on all campuses, and you just go to the bank and they gave you that. Now, Absa used to have that. Yeah, they used to have a student center as well as Standard Bank. None of the banks have that
Okay,
anymore.
that's so interesting. I think we need to do a whole study around this the funding at university level. And you're right. I mean, people have taken out loans in the past and they've paid. So besides those who simply can't even afford to pay, because when you've got a 30% unemployment, an expanded version close on to 50%, can you imagine the type of problems that communities and families face on that issue? But thanks for bringing that up, Shanti and Vredendal, right? Another quick comment, if I can, Pragarson in Durban, go for it.
Hi, yes. I just wanted to share with you a deal I made with my two children. I came from a previously disadvantaged background, couldn't afford to go to university, really worked hard through my life to get a university education. And I made a deal with my children that I will send them to university. They now both have degrees, and they have to pay it forward. And they have to, in the course of their next 5 or 10 years, before they have their own children to send to university, have to pick a deserving student in their community, in their church, or wherever, and send them to university.
Oh, wonderful. Did they do that? I mean, were they able to do so, your children? I mean, where are they in that journey?
So my kids have just graduated, and they've just started working this year. So they're just starting to become independent from me, and I remind them all the time that they now have to start looking for a deserving child to help them through university.
Yeah. In fact, a wonderful story that there's a very, very fascinating story about a played forward that regards a high-ranking South African in the judiciary, which I'll remind you just now. Let's get to the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Top stories. The SAWA G20 presidency advocate for global peace and KZN COGTA partners with NGOs in disaster response. Good afternoon. I'm Kolofelo Defo. President Cyril Ramaphosa has reiterated South Africa's stance for global peace. Ramaphosa was addressing the opening of the G20 Foreign Affairs meeting in Johannesburg. He says Pretoria, with its G20 presidency, will continue to advocate for dialogue where there are conflicts and wars in the world. He says these conflicts heavily affect citizens' livelihood. Ramaphosa says South Africa's G20 will also tackle other pressing global issues.
The conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, conflicts that's raging in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the Sudan, in the Sahel and in Gaza, continue to exact heavy human toll and heighten global insecurity. South Africa welcomes the ceasefire agreement reached between Israel and Hamas as a crucial first step towards ending the severe humanitarian crisis faced by the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Meanwhile, the Norwegian Foreign Affairs Minister Espen Barth Eide has called for Ukraine to be part of any peace talks that is aimed at ending the war in Kiev. This after Russia and US officials met on Tuesday for talks on the peace talk process for the war in Ukraine, with Ukraine not being invited to the meeting. Barth Eide is in South Africa for the two-day G20 Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting.
You cannot make peace over the head of the country in question and the people in question. I think Africans know better than most that you don't like a world, and I don't like a world where great powers divide countries without their consent. I mean, that is the history of colonialism. We want Ukraine at the table. We want Europe to be part of this. Of course, we welcome any attempt that can take us to a just peace, but it has to be a peace that the Ukrainians can support and be part of.
The Department of Cooperative Governance in KwaZulu-Natal has signed a memorandum of understanding between social partners in Pietermaritzburg. The aim of the MOU is to work with these NGOs and some private companies in disaster response. Among their organizations include the Red Cross. MEC for Cooperative Governance Thulasizwe Buthelezi says the agreement will help government to respond swifter to disaster victims.
With regards to assistance in disaster relief, really opens a new page for us as a province of KwaZulu-Natal. You would know that our province is really disaster prone. If you look at the last 12 months and the impact of disasters, not only on our infrastructure, but also on the lives of our people. Therefore, partnering with the social partners underscores the fact that to be disaster aware is not only the function of government, but civil society and business as well must come on board.
DA's Gauteng leader Solly Msimanga says the province's economy will deteriorate drastically if Premier Panyaza Lesufi continues to stay in the office. This came out during a press conference which the DA in Gauteng has termed the True State of the Province address. The DA's TISOPA comes ahead of the State of the Province, which will be delivered on Monday despite the postponement of tabling of the national budget. Msimanga says due to Lesufi's poor leadership of the province, many investors are no longer willing to invest in the province.
We have heard enough of his unrealistic promises, his lack of proper implementation, and we have had enough of lack of accountability that seems to be informed here in Gauteng. The Gauteng economy is suffering and investors are not comfortable in investing in it due to the numerous challenges that the Premier Lesufi's government has failed to address. The case in point is his promise to clamp down on the corruption and the crimes so that the economy can grow. Yet he refuses to release the crucial reports that we've been asking for.
Still in Gauteng, Provincial Commissioner Tommy Mtombeni hopes the weekly Operation Shanela will reduce certain crime trends observed recently in the Ekurhuleni district. Mtombeni was speaking in Germiston, east of Johannesburg, where he was leading the weekday operation in the form of a roadblock. He says hijacking, assault and murder have increased in the area. Operation Shanela aims to curb crime and assist local police stations by reducing it. Mtombeni says they will continue to monitor hotspot areas.
The crime pattern analysis, today we take in the two stations, which is Jimiston and Primrose. You could see through the presentation murder, attempted murder, assault GBH, car hijacking, to a certain extent, your business robbery. It is a problem. So based on those crime trends, we come here in order to give a helping hand to the station commander or station commanders.
The top story this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has reiterated South Africa's stance for global peace. Ramaphosa was addressing the opening of the G20 Foreign Affairs meeting in Johannesburg. Headlines at 4:30 for SAFM News. I'm Kolofelo Defo.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Mackenzie hints at better and improved boxing SA funding. Sundowns, Pirates and Stellies to learn their fate in the CAF draw, which is taking part from 4 p.m. With that said, I'll have more on this at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, road closures and traffic restrictions in the Nasrec area for the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting today and tomorrow. In Centurion, John Foster Drive, Robbie Street is closed due to flooding at Henops River, and End Avenue is closed due to flooding at Henops River. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. Bayhead Road has truck congestion reported towards and from the Bluff, so you're asked to expect delays, and Umgeni Road westbound is slow moving through Springfield Park. In Cape Town, the N7 Jakes Havel Drive southbound slow moving at Voortrekker Road. The M5 southbound is slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit. The M3 southbound slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and on the N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving traffic reported towards Hospital Bend. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the Tooth Fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Fizzy drinks and fruit juices can make our children sick. Sugar is dumped into their bodies with every sip, which could lead to obesity, heart disease, and diabetes as they age. We must protect them from drinks high in sugar. Demand a stricter health promotion levy now. Sign the petition on heala.org. That's HEALA.org.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
I'll tell you what, that conversation we had with Makwadi has certainly got people thinking. Now, it's not the first time anybody has ever suggested that, but it's funny, you know. Sometimes you can suggest something and nobody does squat about it for a year, 2 years, nothing. Or sometimes someone does something for a couple of weeks and it just fizzles out. But maybe in the context of what we're speaking about and the budget no speech yesterday, it's an apt reminder that a lot of what we have to do to change the country lies in our hands. So I think this point has certainly resonated. There are many people commenting, and I tell you what, with their own ideas. So whether we take your calls live or take your WhatsApps or not, perhaps even if you want to drop us an email, feel free to come up with your own suggestions about how we can take this step forward and whether and how we as SAFM, perhaps, and I need to check to management about it, how we can actually facilitate something far bigger than where we are. Just drop us an email to studio@safm.coza, studio@safm.co.za. Right, here's some further thoughts on just that issue.
Afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Victor from Aida Properties in Limpopo. I would like to join in, contribute towards the proposed fund. The lady called in earlier to propose the funds. She reckoned if we start with 10 rands each as citizens, we could actually mean or make a difference. I'm in.
Okay, well, there you are. Again, I think for now, just drop us an email to studio@safm.coza. Besides what you're doing here, right? Drop us just your intent on studio@safm.coza and how we can go about doing so. At some stage, we need to rope in someone, and I'm just speaking at the top of my head here, not even as a talk show host, but as a South African who cares deeply about our country. And we have to do something, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf, Devini. I want to think out loud. The ministers who are given VIP protection, once they leave the ministerial position, do they still continue having VIP protection, or the people who are threatening their lives now lose interest? I'm just thinking out loud.
Well, I can't speak about those that are threatening their lives that lose interest. I hope they lose interest in that even before, right? But my understanding is no, I think the VIP support by and large, security protection is linked to the job that you do. So if you're the president or you're an MP, you're not equal in that sense, okay? You may disagree, but that's just how it is. So you drop that position, there's less security securing you. And I think that is understandable, isn't it? Here's another thought.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I was a student during the Fees Must Fall movement. Fortunately, I was rescued by a company that I got a bursary for. But however, one of the questions that I asked myself is, are universities public institutions? Secondly, are they profit organizations? If they are profit organizations, do they pay tax or they don't pay tax? Then secondly, I think maybe universities should have a public ledger for us to see what is it that they do with the money if they are public institutions which are non-tax paying.
Well, there you are. That's another suggestion that you have. I tell you what, just by the way, if you've been a student and you've had to struggle along, whether you come from a wealthy background, a middle-class background, or someone working class or someone absolutely below the line, below the bread line, that is, and you've got yourself into varsity and you've had to struggle along, right, and you want to share your story about how the lack of money just so affected your studies, I'd like to get that personal story in. And here's a quick one on, in fact, what I'll do is I need to talk about that story that I spoke about, play it forward, but let me do that in a few minutes' time, because there's an important issue we need to cover regarding those mudslides in KZN, right? We'll talk about that next.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's now talk about that. 5 people killed in mudslides in this area called Winkelspruit near Amanzimtoti, south of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's find out exactly where we are with the story with Nonjabulo Mtungwa, Makamu, who's the SABC News reporter covering that story. Appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us on the National Pulse.
Greetings to you, Ashraf.
Thank you. Now, I know you've been covering the story. It must be a most difficult story to cover, isn't it?
Oh, yes, of course, Ashraf. It's quite a difficult story, a tragic one to cover. Well, I can tell you this much, Ashraf, is that the community, especially those on the south of Durban, they have been severely affected by the heavy rains that fell last night. And of course, we did visit a number of affected families. The first family that we visited, Ashraf, is that of a 44-year-old man who died in a mudslide. Apparently, the mudslide crashed into his home and buried him alive. His family says that they tried to assist, but it was just too much for them. So they had to wait for the emergency services to actually come and recover his body. Another one not very far from this area in Adams Mission. It's also on the south of Durban, Ashraf. This one, another tragic one, a couple also died when their house also collapsed due to the mudslide. Their children, two of them very young, Ashraf, they survived unharmed. So it's quite a tragic event that we've covered, and obviously the community, they are seeking assistance, and most of them that we have spoken to, Ashraf, they are saying that they would like to be moved from that area to another area, probably a suitable land where they can build their homes.
Okay, well, I mean, there's some elements of good news within this absolute tragedy. Were you able to get close to some of the family members of the people who've lost their lives? And if so, obviously they are distraught, but is anything you can share with us?
Yes, of course, Ashraf. The couple, they had a son who is actually doing his third year at one of the universities here in KZN. He says that he heard about the news when one of the neighbors called him. He was still at school at that time, and they asked him to rush. And he says that as he was in the taxi, Ashraf, he heard over the news the reports, and he said that it could be my family. He says when he arrived home, the entire house, it was cordoned off. There were emergency services. They were also actually trying to extricate and remove his parents who were stuck in that wreckage. And he says that he was devastated, but he's so brave, Ashraf, because he says that he is also grateful that as much as he lost his parents, but his two siblings survived unharmed. But of course, now it's all about trying to make preparations and trying to actually clear out the house and see what they can retrieve from the house, and also just trying to get assistance from the social workers as well as the departments.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share about this?
Well, Ashraf, all I can say is that, most of the people that we have spoken to around this issue of mudslide and the floods in KZN, we have spoken to one of the councillors there, and who says that the biggest problem is that some people, they build in lands that they are not supposed to be building in. And he has said that, they are trying to gather the traditional leaders to try and move these people to suitable locations. But for other people, it's not that easy for them to move, because here we're talking about like formal structures, like proper beautiful houses where they've experienced this ordeal. But they are saying that they are hoping that they will break through in terms of speaking to traditional leaders and communities, if they can find suitable land for them and move them to lands where they would basically be safe whenever the province experiences such rain. And of course, others are complaining that government is not doing enough with the issue around, sorting out the issue of aged infrastructure in eThekwini that the province is experiencing. But the province also did mention, Ashraf, I have to say this one, that the recent rains, it has also affected some of the beaches in KZN, which means that some of them have been closed, which means bathing, surfing at these beaches is prohibited until further notice.
I see.
Yeah.
Just the last thing, therefore, what sort of I'm talking about immediate support has there been for families who've A, lost their loved ones, and then B, have actually lost their homes?
Well, at this point in time, because the incidents, all of them, they happened during the early hours of this morning. When we got to some of these scenes, the first one at KwaMakhutha, there were some social workers who were there taking out or just trying to gather information and obviously promising that they will assist these families. Also at second location where this couple died, also the children, they were put in a place of safety. They were also trying to gather information in terms of how they can best assist these families. But for now, in terms of homes, like in terms of structure for them, where they can actually, stay in, it's not clear as to whether they're going to be placed at a temporary residential units, those TRUs that we have been seeing. The Human Settlements Department has been building for flood victims. Even the 2022 flood victims who were affected in April, Ashraf, some of them, they're still in these homes. So we don't know if it's going to be a similar situation for these affected residents and, the families of the deceased. At this point in time, it's basically something that we just need to follow up on, whether the promises have been fulfilled.
Okay, well, do keep us informed on that absolute tragedy once again. Nonjabulo, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. There we are. At least we know 5 people killed in those mudslides in the region of Amanzimtoti in KwaZulu-Natal. We'll talk about the registration for spaza shops. Do you know what the deadline is today? We'll talk about that next.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, racing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward, just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
SAFM would like to thank everyone that submitted their entries for the playwriting competition. The announcement of the top 10 and winners of the competition will be announced on the 3rd of March 2025 on The Talking Point with Kathy Mutlatlana. Stay tuned to SAFM and find out who is the lucky winner. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Right, make a note of this, right? 52-year-old Sipho loves OUTsurance Essential because it's low-cost insurance made for older cars. Now, for his 2007 Hyundai Tucson, he only pays 314 Rand a month. With OUTsurance Essential, accident claims are paid in cash. So you can choose the panel beater you want to use. Now, top this up with the motor warranty, which covers you for mechanical or electrical breakdowns as well. Get savings with OUTsurance Essential for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. So is that your car? Do you qualify? If so, SMS CAR to 43187. CAR 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's and information online.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Okay, did I say the deadline for registration of sponsor shops is today? In fact, no, you've got some grace, but not much. 28th of February is when that deadline happens. So you need to get moving. And the question is, where are you with it? What is the reason behind it? And to what degree have you been able to comply? And what happens if you don't? So it's a reminder once again. With me is the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, that's Kochta, Minister Velenkosi Hlabisa. Minister, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon to yourself as well as the listeners of the radio station.
Thank you. So, of course, that deadline is looming very, very fast. Just remind us once again in terms of why the need to register, what happens if anybody misses that deadline.
Indeed, we are on a countdown to the 28th of February, which is the last date for the registration of Spaza Shop. The reason why people must register is to ensure that every Spaza Shop or food handling outlet is legal. It's known who owns it, who runs it, and this will allow them to access the financial support, which is R500 million. And this will make us also know, once the deadline has closed, there will be the physical inspection of the premises, and the Minister of Health will make a prescription of what can be and cannot be sold in a spaza shop, and the community will have to be vigilant when they see a product that does not appear on the list. They must report immediately so that we ensure spaza shops do not sell what they are not allowed to sell. That is how we want to avoid fake stuff and illicit goods in our spaza shops.
How far down the line are you with the registrations? Meaning, how many spaza shops do you think there are in the country? How many have registered so far?
We will be releasing the statistics next week, but the work is well underway. They are registering as we speak. But as we know, the spaza shops are more than what is going to be registered, because many spaza shops are run by foreign nationals who, most of them, if not all of them, will not qualify to apply to run spaza shops, because you must be here legally in South Africa. And if you want to run a spaza shop, you must prove you are here to invest and you have 5 million rand in a bank account in South Africa and you are registered with SARS. So now that will make it difficult for many, if not all of them, who are running spaza shops currently.
So let's separate them. What's going to happen to the spaza shops that are owned by foreign nationals, the example you've just given, if they miss that 28th of February deadline, and many will miss it? And what will happen to South African nationals who also will miss the deadline on the 28th of February for whatever reason?
Let me start with the South African nationals. The South African nationals who will miss the deadline, they will not be allowed to operate after 28 February. They will need to go through the process of applying, because the applications will be done throughout, but before you operate your spaza shop, you must have applied and got the approval, if that happens after the 28th. So now, it's like someone who will have a feeling of running a spaza shop in March, just go and apply, go through the process. Once you are processed and approved, then you can open your spaza shop. The foreign nationals, those who do not qualify but running spaza shops now, unfortunately, they will not be allowed to run a spaza shop. They will have to close down. And if found running a spaza shop illegally, they will be arrested.
Okay. What about this whole drive to register spaza shops? I mean, it came about at the time when we found that many of these spaza shops were selling foods and they were, unregulated. So yes, people were getting ill and some people died as well, tragically so, right? So going forward, do you think, how will this then manage that process? I mean, one thing is being a registered store, but there are registered stores who don't sell food, who also commit lots of illegalities in terms of the businesses they do. They just legally registered, but they don't necessarily do a good thing at what they do.
That is why I said once the closing date 28 comes, the next thing, there will be physical visit to the spaza shops to check the locality, and as well as the person who applied. If it was Hlabisa, they must find Hlabisa running the spaza shop, not a foreign national. And once that has been done, a process of licensing will be processed. Once a license has been done, then the next process, the health inspectors will constantly do the inspection. The Minister of Health will prescribe what can be sold in a spaza shop. You find condoms, you find anything which you cannot guarantee whether is it an illicit good or what. A spaza shop will have to be confined. What is it that you can sell? And if you sell what is not on the prescribed list, which must be pasted on the wall for everybody to see that what you are selling is according to what you are prescribed to do so, the people must report, because when they don't, they put their lives in danger.
Okay.
So now there will be strict adherence of what must be sold, and there will be constant visits by health inspectors, by police, by municipal officials. And when you are found transgressing what you must be selling, you will be firstly warned that remove these goods. And if you are found again in an unannounced visit, you will have to close down and be blacklisted for 5 years.
All right, quickly, we're going to move on. We're on to news time. So I'll just push this very quickly with you. One, what is a spaza shop? What is a spaza shop, and what's the difference between a spaza shop and a not-so spaza shop?
A spaza shop is a small business that sells food that is not readily made, that is not cooked. It can be bread. It can be a number of items. It can be snacks. It can be sealed cans, a fish or whatever. It's different from a shop. A shop has a license to be a shop. That is why there will be items that you cannot find a hardware material or a pharmacy material in a spaza shop.
Okay.
And a food handling outlet, those sell cooked food,
okay,
ready-made food.
Point made. Now, just the last thing, I didn't get a chance to speak to you yesterday when we looked at reaction from the budget, no budget speech. So what's your, if you may indulge us, what's your one word to describe what happened yesterday regarding the budget, no speech day?
The interest of the people of South Africa came first to the cabinet because, you know, I cannot tell more of what transpired in the cabinet, but the basic point, the cabinet could not approve the budget if it was accompanied by 2% increase on VAT. All political parties, because I would not grandstand and want an easy victory, which is not necessary. There is not one claim that it is it that made the budget not to pass. It is all political parties. We all said no to VAT because it was going to be a burden to ordinary people. So it was good interest for people. We will find a common approach jointly, and we are united. That is why we said commonly, let us stop the presentation today until we finalize this matter.
So not one single party, thanks for, but a collective. Thanks for clearing that up, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Of course, from the IFP as well, Belenkosi Klabisa. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Let's get the news headlines. Here's Kholofelo.
In the headlines this hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged G20 leaders to promote diplomatic solutions to ongoing conflicts. These conflicts include, among others, those in Eastern DRC, Sudan, the Middle East and Ukraine. AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel says U.S. President Donald Trump is correct about the confiscation of land in South Africa. Kriel accused the government of being complicit in land grabs. And a convoy carrying the coffins of 4 Israeli hostages held in Gaza has arrived at a forensic institute in Tel Aviv for formal identification of the bodies. Hamas has handed over the bodies as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal. Details at 5 with Greg Close.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Parktown has a crash reported before Oxford Road exit. The M1 northbound in Woodmead has a crash after Marlborough Drive exit. And on the N1 northbound in Midrand, slow-moving traffic reported towards Samrand Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound has a stationary vehicle before the Pavilion Shopping Centre exit. Bayhead Road has truck congestion reported towards and from the Bluff, so expect delays. In Cape Town, Main Road is slow-moving through Muizenberg. Kormiki Road northbound is slow-moving, as well as Main Road being slow-moving through Cork Bay. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Right, to me, you want to talk about CAF football in terms of the draw, right?
Yeah, the draw is actually underway, and Stellenbosch FC have been drawn up against defending champions Zamalek in the quarterfinals of the CAF Confederations Cup. The first leg will be on the 2nd of April, and the second leg on the 9th of April, and the draw is still underway. We are yet to find out about Orlando Pirates and Mamelodi Sundowns in the CAF Champions League draw. Elsewhere, Spain's former Football Federation boss Luis Rubiales has been found guilty of sexual assault for kissing player Jenny Hermoso without her consent and ordered to pay around 10,800 euros, which is around 208,000 rands. He was acquitted of coercion for allegedly trying to pressure Hermoso into saying publicly that the kiss was consensual. The ruling also banned Rubiales from going within a 200-meter radius of Hermoso from communicating with her for 1 year. Then in boxing, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, has promised an improved budget for the Boxing South Africa Federation in the next fiscal. Speaking at the two-day boxing convention in East London, a first in 12 years, McKenzie says that the current budget for BSA doesn't serve any purpose for the sport.
It's true what was said here. I've inherited a budget. In 3 weeks to 4 weeks, it's time for me to tell you what is my budget, as you said right here. And it's only then that you will see how serious do I take boxing. Boxing's days back to glory shall find expression in my budget. So that day you must tune in and you will see what is it that we are going to do.
Well, McKenzie has also not minced his words on promoters who owe millions of rands to BSA and others who have not paid boxers.
The sanctioning model, the problem you're having with promoters owing and then discussing afterwards, no, we don't owe. It's very easy to solve that problem. There's too many fly-by-nights that say they are promoters. We need to get the real promoters must now stand up. And if you are a real promoter, you will not have a problem with what I'm going to say now, that you must pay your levies before the fight. So we know the boxers get paid. So if you are fly-by-night, you will worry now what you're going to do. But if you are the real thing, that will help you. That nobody owes nobody. We are sorting that out. I see some of you are not clapping, so I can see you are guilty of this thing.
Then moving on to rugby, assistant coach Berend Petersen says that the Lions are in a very good position to challenge for a top 8 finish or even higher in the race for URC playoff spot. This as Ivan Ryan's Chargers gear up for USK Derby rematch against the Bulls at Loftus on Saturday. The Lions finished the regular season in 9th place last year, narrowly missing out on a playoff qualification on points difference. Currently sitting 12th on the log with 23 points, the Lions have 1 game in hand over the Bulls and Sharks and 2 over most other teams. With the Bulls in 3rd place on 35 points, Petersen insists that Lions are still in the fight. In the meantime, Springbok Women's Sevens utility back Nadine Roos says that it's an honor to represent South Africa for the time in the Challenger Series. Roos is part of the SA Rugby 12-player squad to compete in the opening series between the 1st to the 2nd of March at Athlone Stadium in Cape Town.
It's quite a big privilege and honor to be part of the group, to again help the group qualify for the HSBC Sevens World Series. And yeah, it's a big task at hand to actually, it's crucial for the team to win both of these tournaments. To actually have a good log standing going into the 3rd tournament.
And a quick update on the ICC Champions Trophy match between Bangladesh and India. India currently batting, sitting on 112 for 1 after 22 overs. They need 117 runs in 27 overs to win. Earlier on, Bangladesh posting 228 all out.
Is that your goodbye?
That's it from my side.
Before that, what do you think of Manchester City and Pep Guardiola?
Being out of the Champions League.
It's an end of an era, clearly.
Definitely.
I still say, as I've told you before, that if he were to leave Manchester City, 10 of the top clubs in the world who've got the money would take him. They would grab him.
Definitely.
Okay, that's the one. But this team, it appears they've hit the end of their era.
You think
now,
so?
I'm saying, well, him and this club for now, meaning that I don't mean he must leave. They'll be crazy to let him go. But he has to reinvent the club. And he's made some signings already that suggest that. So you could have another year and he's going to come back very, very strongly. But this year is fast becoming a non-year for Manchester City, which is unthinkable 6 months ago.
True.
And the lesson in that, actually, for Manchester City and for politics and political leaders and everybody else around the world is nothing ever lasts forever. Don't take it for granted.
True, but truth of the matter is it was going to be a challenge against Real Madrid. Did
Yeah.
you see them coming back against Madrid?
No, but it's not just about Real. What I'm saying is a decline of the club. So they were 3-0 down at one stage yesterday, I know that, but the club has clearly declined, a position that was unthinkable at the end of last season when they won 4 league titles on the trot.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that all leadership in the world, it comes to an end.
Is it an end? Or just
Well,
a slump?
this one is an end. Well, this clearly has to be an end. Last 16 knocked out, it's an end. It's finals or bust for the money-rich Manchester City, I would think. Anyway, I wonder what others think about it. And can you draw parallels, by the way, to other sporting legends, clubs or individuals, right, from around the world? You can throw in Kaiser Chiefs, by the way, in that conversation, where somehow what is unthinkable just becomes normal, because that's just the way it has been, right? We'll talk about that. I'd love to get your comments. You can call in or WhatsApp us too, right?
CFI, a global leader in online trading, is now in South Africa. Access 15,000 plus instruments, currencies, stocks, metals, crypto CFDs, indices, futures, and more on world-class platforms. Enjoy zero pip spreads, no commission fees, and 24/7 support for confident trading. Visit cfi.trade for a secure, transparent trading experience. Don't miss the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda, Tuesdays at 16:45. Proudly sponsored by CFI. CFI Financial, an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply. Reigning African champions Banyana Banyana are gearing up to defend their WAFCON title in Morocco. Dr. Ellis and the girls want to deny neighbors Lesotho a moment to shine. But Mehala Dito believe their game plan is too great to stop. This is the international friendly. Experience the Southern African Derby, South Africa versus Lesotho, on Saturday 22 February at 12:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 2. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
After yesterday's excitement, today's a very boring day for you, Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. But boring or not, you do have news, local and global, of course, and back home, Adcock Ingram, right?
Yes, definitely. An afternoon to you and to the listeners. These are your Ali Jacks Panado guys. Operational and financial performance impacted, unfortunately, by constrained consumer spending within the lower LSM, reduced inventory holdings by pharmaceutical wholesalers, and the reduced demand negatively impacted the gross margin due to significantly reduced production levels, revenue down 1%, operating profit down 17%, and profits as headline earnings per share down 9%. And yes, Ashraf, market participants are grappling with hawkish signals from the U.S. Central Bank as reflected on their last meeting minutes, and also the prospect of more trade tariffs under Trump. But Trump said a new trade deal with China is possible and repeated that he has a very good relationship with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. And SA Chamber of Commerce and Industry called for diligence and speed in resolving the stalemate when it comes to our budget, and that's in order to prevent the prolonged uncertainty and also to boost both business and investor confidence. And we saw the rand managed to recoup some of yesterday's losses. And even after a report showing a build-up in U.S. crude stockpiles, which is a sign of lack of demand, supply concerns are lifting prices. Brent crude is up 0.7% at $76 a barrel. And the yellow metal at record highs is concerned that Trump trade tariffs will unleash a global trade war, driving investor appetite when it comes to the market. And remember, gold, which is a safe haven in terms of uncertainty has gained almost 12% so far this year. Today is up 0.4% at $2,950, and platinum up 0.8% at 981. And global markets are down, but the local bourse is attempting to recoup yesterday's losses. Now we are up 0.4%, lifted by our resources, which are up 2%. And the rand, as we said earlier, firmed 0.5% against the US dollar, is now 18.41, and 23.26 against the pound, and 19.26 against the euro.
Right, perfect. We will catch up again tomorrow. Thanks for that, Makwe Masilela. Appreciate your time. Right, what I'll do is let me take your calls. I want to get your calls. I want to get your thoughts. You can WhatsApp, you can text, you can call in directly, you can tweet as well. Many people doing just that on any of the issues we've been speaking about so far, including, of course, the issue of student funding, which is it is such a complex issue, but we have to resolve that, right? That and a whole lot more. Siva, I'll talk to you next.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
So there's a message from Tommy saying, Ashraf, I think it's this new world order is going to take Africa to the center stage of world economic politics, and especially with the shaping up of BRICS, the betrayal of European Union by the US. Trump is going to be the downfall of the American empire. I wonder how, explain how. I think we've had the caller, we do have Siva now on the line. Siva, you want to comment about the fees story, right? Okay, Siva, we'll come back to you as soon as we can. Let's just get to some of the other issues. Right, this takes a second. Okay, comment on Wits University.
Hunger striking Wits students, what a joke. But Wits should help them in their cause by now closing their kitchens.
But what's the context of that? I mean, I know the bigger context of not being allowed to register, but that's it. End of story. Okay.
What a brilliant idea. But I can't commit for the whole year. So what I'll do is, I have 120. That's 12 months of 10 rand, 10 rand, 10 rand. Yeah. Just let me know when you are done with the organization, and then I'll just pass over my 120.
Oh, that's a fabulous gesture. Now, we're not taking any money. Now, we don't even know where we're going to go next. All I think we are saying, and for those who listen in late, right? Never be late for the show, right? Because then you what about your pulse rate? But we had a caller, Akwadi, who made the point, and she said that Ashraf, besides government and ANSFAS and every other, and there are many scholarships and business scholarships around the country. Let's be fair about that, okay? It's still clearly not enough. There's so many South Africans unemployed, their families are unemployed, they can't afford to pay university or college fees, and they are struggling. And if they don't get access to that, it puts them into a life of perpetual poverty and divide. So on Social Justice Day, the inequality of those who have and those who have not are just widened. So she suggested that why don't we as in anybody, let's just start up something on our own and see how we can support it. So we don't have the answers. All I'm suggesting maybe as a starting point is drop us an email if you've got some really solid ideas, including that 120 rands, the 10 rand a month. Just drop an email to studio@safm.co.za. Can you do that? studio@safm.co.za with your ideas, and let's see where that goes. And I'll have a chat with management and see what we can do with. Maybe we can do something, but it has to be broad scale. It has to be. And then, who knows, maybe somebody's got some super bright idea that will change the world for the people of South Africa, for the better, forever. That would be fantastic. Mark in Cape Town, hi.
Hey, Ashraf, just back on the student funding, we could look at a way similar to the UK does it, where Treasury back the payments, so they pay the universities on behalf of the students, and then those fees are recouped, interest fee via their taxes once they meet an earning threshold. So essentially, everyone that gets accepted is guaranteed their funds are paid, and then they are guaranteed to repay the country, but there's no debt, no interest on that, and it doesn't affect their credit status because it's all through the government.
Okay, that could be an idea.
This could be really effective.
Yeah. I mean, look, to a degree, ANSFAS is exactly that, to a degree, okay? But I understand there's different ways of doing so. Maybe this could be another idea around just that. Mark, thanks for that. Thanks for that contribution, Mark. Let me remind you very quickly of what I said, because we had the call of, I think it was from Durban, who made the point that he did a deal with his children, right, to say he will pay for everything, but the situation would have to change when they themselves graduate. Then they must, what he called, pay it forward. So they must then look for somebody else in the communities, wherever they come from, and try and support them. And I then remembered about a situation where a youngster went to a town somewhere in the south coast of Natal, KZN, had no money, and this business were offering, I think it was something like a coupon where you could get groceries or something along that line to support this person, and not just that person, but many others as well through their university. And the plan was, when you're done, you can come back and pay us. And then this person went back and then said, I've graduated, this is what I owe you, and went back to this person and said, here's your money. And the person who provided the support initially, I think it was a Mr. Bucks, I can't get his first name, and I'm not sure whether it's Port Shepstone or whichever region in the south coast of Durban. And the Mr. Bucks told this person, the student now, the graduate, to say, right, now, I don't want your money. What you have to do is you have to pay it forward. Do what I've done to you to somebody else and support them in a way that they will graduate. Now, I say that, and I've said no names, because that person who went to Mr. Bucks, who got that support, his name is Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. It's a legendary story, and he cried at how important that was in his life. So that's how you can open doors and break boundaries and break barriers in a way that changes not just the lives of individuals, but can change the destiny of a country. It's that significant. More calls, come on, let's change people's lives. That's the bottom line here, isn't it?
It's 2025, aka 2020 Thrive. And from January to December, we're managing our expenses better, even in the month of love. Whatever personal expenses or aspirations you have, make them happen now with a Nedbank personal loan of up to 400,000 Rand. And enjoy our best available interest rate.
Search Nedbank Personal Loans and show your goals some love. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Doc. My Bezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch in the arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. starts 9 February, only on S3.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, I mean, you've heard that Judge Zondo story with Mr. Bucks helping him out and saying, go and pay it forward. Do you have your own story like that? Have you been in a situation where you were completely vulnerable and in danger of not finishing your tertiary education, and then you had someone who illogically helped you and changed your life and then inspired you to help other people? So has that happened to you? Because I'd love to know. And if that can inspire others, that's just fabulous, okay? Right, let's get back to some of the calls. It is the National Pulse. I need to feel your pulse, right? Lindiwe and Joburg, go for it.
Hi, Ashraf, first-time caller.
Welcome to the show. It's about time.
Yes, really, I was also just moved by your previous caller, who was saying perhaps we could donate some 10 grams, and if everybody was to just put their hands together, perhaps we could all make a difference. And that really moved me. And I also just wanted to put my name on the hat that I'll be very happy to be part of the team, to sit around the table to see how we can collect these funds and mobilize them in reaching out to our students. Because being an employee at a university myself, we see the struggles of the students on a day-to-day basis. And also just wanted to bring in maybe another angle that, money is another thing that students desperately need. But also, what we're seeing is that students also need some skills in how they manage their time, how to deal with the freedom that they expect to the university in order to achieve. And where I work, we try to look into a comprehensive way of supporting students who come from backgrounds and seeing how we can even get them to get the skills of how they can get employed within the university. So I think money is one thing that is needed, and other skills that would help the students succeed in an environment like a university.
Well, that's wonderful, Lindy. Great story from your side and great support. So look, we don't know where it is going to go. At the moment, it's just thinking, but better to think now than not to think. We already moved 1 hour ahead in terms of where we were, at 3 o'clock, right? So please drop us an email, studio@safm.coza. studio@safm.coza. Please do that. Let's see what comes out of this thing. I think we just put our heads together and we must do something besides just talking. We must change people's lives. Bottom line to that, okay? Right, here's another comment. I think it's Yabinga in Langa. Yabinga, hello.
Hi, Ashraf. Ashraf, I want to also support the idea of us listeners making contributions towards a student fund, if I can call it that. Maybe SABC can help promote the idea in all its radio stations so that everybody in South Africa, even other private radio stations, we can all partner, one cause in making sure that all the youth of our country never have to struggle going to university and all of that. We never have to witness all of that again. That's what I would like to.
Well, I think you're right. That's again just so heartwarming, and you're right. It can't be sort of narrow. It's got to be broad. It's got to be broad based. It must be there to serve the country. It has to be. So Yabinga, I take your point. Thank you for that. And I'll tell you what, I'm amazed how many people are responding to this. I'm just thinking, like, if we had as many of that to governments, to Treasury yesterday, there's no need to even worry about the 2% increase. That just tells you that people care enough to uplift society. Here's another one. Please include me in the fundraising for the students. Let me remind you. Thank you for that. Just drop us an email. studio@safm.co.za. And there's a few more around that story. There's a couple more. I'll try and read that as soon as I can. Right. Let me just get to some of the voice notes in the meantime. Here's one.
Hi, SFM. Good idea. I count me in. The idea of donating. Let's maybe start a community of SAFM, especially this program. And I'm in. Count me in. You don't have to play my voice note, but if you want to play, you can play. But count me in. I'll also be part of that donation monthly. Thank you. Bye.
Well, there you are. Thank you so much. Studio@safm.coza. If you can drop us an email there so we get a sense of what exactly is possible. Let's work out what can be done. No exact promises about how we can structure it, but I just think it's something we must do. And if I can in some way, myself and Keys and Fusani and Temba and Phineas and everybody else part of the team here to say, as the National Pulse, if we can drive something for the greater good of South Africa, then we must be able to do that.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. This is Mark Warashinyaza from Tembo. Ashraf, I totally disagree with that gentleman that says the world is not run through summits and these leaders are just coming there to pose for photos. Yeah, no. These summits like G20s are very important because the leaders are showing solidarity and they have to meet together to make decisions. Especially now that we have these geopolitical tensions. This G20s is very important,
Well, I think you're right. To sort of write it off completely, quite honestly, is just off the mark, and we know that.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Isibongani Nkosi Paula Ochis Mpumalanga.
Look, I sincerely second the notion submitted by the lady there. I really do want to rally behind it. Please keep us on the loop with the development pertaining it. We want to really support it. We will also organize through our local networks to ensure that it gets supported. Thank you.
Well, there you are. You second the motion. Motion may well be accepted, Your Honor, if I can say that, right? Let me do this one. Let's.
Hi, Ashraf. NSFAS fund, in terms of its administration, is outsourced. So a certain percentage goes to outsourcing rather than benefiting the intended learners or students. Why not have the administration of this fund within higher education itself? Thank you. Bye.
Okay, and let me see if I can play one other, but you must keep those sound bites less than 30 seconds. It helps.
Afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, politics is so fat. America once said South Africa must arrest Putin if he comes to South Africa attending the BRICS. Now, Trump was with Putin. Now. 3 weeks ago, Trump was with the Indian Prime Minister. But he pretends like he don't like BRICS. Is it the BRICS he's fighting? Is it Putin is fighting, or is fighting South Africa? Now he's pulling Russia towards himself so that in future Russia must isolate South Africa as well, because it will be his ally. It's so funny. Norman from Brixton.
Well, thanks for that, Norman. Funny, and it's not a joke. That's the point, isn't it? He's also said, I think, that the Ukraine started the war against the Russians, so things have changed dramatically. But then why would you expect anything different from Donald Trump? Let's get the news. Here's Greg Coase.
Thank you, Ashraf. A call for diplomacy over global conflicts and bodies of Israeli hostages arrive in Tel Aviv. Good day to you. President Cyril Ramaphosa has urged G20 leaders to promote diplomatic solutions to ongoing conflicts. These include, among others, in the eastern DRC, Sudan, the Middle East and Ukraine. Speaking at the opening of the G20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg, Ramaphosa welcomed the ceasefire agreement reached between Israel and Hamas, describing it as a crucial step towards alleviating the humanitarian crisis faced by Palestinians in Gaza.
This ceasefire must lay the basis for a just and lasting peace in line with UN resolutions, in line with international law and internationally agreed parameters. As the G20, we must continue to advocate for diplomatic solutions to conflicts. Our own experience as South Africa is that the peaceful resolution of conflict through inclusive dialogue is the foremost guarantor of sustainable and lasting peace.
CEO of lobby group AfriForum, Khalid Creel, says US President Donald Trump is correct about the confiscation of land in South Africa. The misinformation regarding land grabs has led to Trump issuing an order for withdrawal of financial aid to South Africa pending investigation. Speaking in an interview with SABC political editor Mazandile Mbeje, Creel accused the government of being complicit in land grabs.
We are seeing land grabs. We see people by people. In Bloemfontein, there's an example where that was instigated by ANC councillors.
But is that state-sponsored?
Indirectly, in the sense that the state makes it easier in terms of legislation. The police, in many of these cases, don't act, and you have to go to court.
Whose fault is that?
Well, I think the government is complicit in the fact that they should make sure that the police act. And then they should support people to try and solve this. Now landowners have to go to court at their own cost.
The eThekwini municipality in KwaZulu-Natal says emergency response teams worked throughout the night to help residents affected by heavy rain and mudslides. The Provincial Department of Cooperative Governance has confirmed that at least 6 people are confirmed to have died. Municipal spokesperson Gugu Siselana.
The adverse weather experienced in the city led to the collapse of formal and informal structures, with reports of entrapments being attended to by authorities. As a safety precaution, beaches in the city have been temporarily closed until further notice. The muddy water and pollution streaming in from flooded estuaries has led to the temporary closure of the Umdloti Beach, Isipingo Beach, Pipeline Beach, Doti Main Beach, Warner Beach, Winkelspruit Beach, and Umgababa Beach. These beaches will be reopened as soon as conditions allow.
City of Tshwane has temporarily shut down the Bronkhorstspruit water treatment plant east of Pretoria due to decline in raw water quality caused by increased cloudiness following recent heavy rainfall. City spokesperson Lindela Mashiko says technicians are monitoring the situation.
The following areas in Region 7 are affected: Bronkhorstspruit Town, Ikandastria, Ekandala, Retabiseng, Riamarpak, Tembisile, Hani local municipality, as well as Zitobeni. Roaming water tankers will be arranged for all the affected areas. The City of Tshwane apologizes for the inconvenience that may be encountered as a result of this temporary shutdown.
Finally, a convoy carrying the coffins of 4 Israeli hostages held in Gaza has arrived at a forensic institute in Tel Aviv for formal identification. They are believed to be those of a mother and her 2 young children and an elderly peace activist. Hamas handed over the bodies as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal. The BBC's Sebastian Asha has more.
The handover of the 4 bodies was once again a choreographed event by Hamas, this time in the devastated landscape of the southern Gazan city of Han Yunis. Hamas fighters and other armed factions put on another show of strength as 4 coffins were handed over to the Red Cross, which had asked for the process to be private and dignified. When the coffins were later passed to the Israeli Defense Force, the military chief rabbi recited prayers over them. Israelis lined the route in the cold and heavy rain as the bodies were taken in a convoy to Tel Aviv, where the forensic identification is taking place.
The top story: President Ramaphosa has urged G20 leaders to promote diplomatic solutions to ongoing conflicts. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hus.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 northbound in Parktown has a crash before Oxford Road exit. The N3 northbound in Bedford View is queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gululis interchange. The M1 southbound is queuing towards Boysons Road exit. In Midrand, the N1 northbound, slow moving towards Samrand Road and Summit Road westbound, has delays at Blue Hills. In KZN, the N3 eastbound queuing towards Ashburton. The N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction, and Chris Harney Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway. In Cape Town, the M7 Jakes Hadville Drive southbound is slow moving towards the R300 highway. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road. The N2 Nelson Mandela Boulevard outbound slow moving towards Hospital Bend, and the M5 southbound slow moving towards Kromboom Road exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
In your sports this hour, Sundowns Pirates to learn their fate in CAF Champions League draw, and Mackenzie hints at better and improved boxing SA funding. More details at 5:30.
Andile, the CEO of a multinational corporation, is driving home with his daughter.
Dad, why is the tooth fairy so stingy?
Stingy? Well, she makes sure everyone gets something.
Does everyone at your company get something?
Yes, they're covered by Old Mutual Corporate's employee benefits.
Even Abdul.
Of course, he gets retirement benefits.
And Sisampo on that big machine.
She gets group risk cover if that big machine hurts her.
Wow, that's amazing, Dad.
Visit oldmutual.co.za/employee benefits and go from questions to solutions for your employees with Old Mutual Corporate. Old Mutual Life Assurance Company SA Limited is a licensed FSP and life insurer. T's and C's apply.
It's time time to shine for young athletes across South Africa. From thrilling football and rugby matches to intense netball games. Experience the passion and prowess of Mzansi's finest young sports stars. SuperSport Schools and SABC Plus bring you the specially curated channel dedicated entirely to school and youth sports. Join us as we celebrate their achievements and bring the excitement right to your screens. This is your chance to support the future of South African sports. The SuperSport Schools channel on SABC Plus, where every game is a home game. Don't miss a moment. Download the SABC Plus app today. Available on iOS, Google, and Smart TV. Or visit sabc-plus.com to start streaming. SuperSport Schools on SABC Plus. All the sport you care about most. Now streaming wherever you are.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So I'll tell you what, on the issue of trying to assist learners nationwide with funding outside of universities and ANSFAS and the many organizations that are involved in some form of scholarship and businesses that do it, and I must say that we must give them credit for all of them, right? But I think the point that we had earlier from Macquarie is really noteworthy, and what it tells you, and that is why, I mean, this show is so important, the National Pulse, because you and I have a feel for the pulse of the nation. And when the nation suffers and says, we don't have the money, we want to learn, and we know governments are unable to support them, and neither can their families, then what do we do? So we're not saying there's like a fairy godmother situation, everything can be sorted out in a day. But there's an idea that's been put on the table to say, come on, why don't we start a huge fund that will change people's lives? So if you have any thoughts and ideas around it, besides what we've already spoken about, just think about it, besides supporting it, like really great ideas. And A, you can call in 086 000 2032. B, you can WhatsApp. Text message 0614 104 107. Use that same number to send a voice note, 30 seconds max, please. And you can tweet on the X platform, SAFM Radio. Just tag us there, tag me. Also, you can post on Facebook too, right? But drop us an email if you've got some solid ideas too. And that email just gives us a sense of where the level of interest is, okay? studio@safm.co.za. I can tell you, I know already the response from you, the person listening, around the country, just fantastic. And then we think that our South Africans are full of nonsense. We're not. We actually have resilience, and we want to make things happen. I'll take your calls later on. Let's get to the other big issue we've been talking about, which is the G20 meeting, the foreign ministers meeting. Now, you know that from my conversation with Sophie Mokoena earlier on. By the way, listen to that chat with Sophie, as well as Patrick Bond. It's up as a podcast, safm.co.za. Then look for it under the National Pulse. You find all the podcasts there. Right, now, the President Ramaphosa has officially opened and addressed a group of 20 foreign ministers meeting in Johannesburg, and the foreign ministers meeting hosted by the Minister of International Relations, that's Minister Ronald Lamola, as you know, takes place under South Africa's G20 presidency theme, which is solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And that happens over 2 days, today, tomorrow, at the Nasrec Expo Center. Now, the actual G20 summit proper happens at the end of the year. So this is the first crucial step in the build-up to that, okay? So let's get some responses in terms of very important sound bites that we picked out from today's meeting, starting with South Africa's president, who said this in welcoming the G20 foreign ministers.
Welcome, and a really warm, hearty welcome to this first foreign ministers meeting under South Africa's G20 presidency. You have now arrived finally, and you may not believe this, to the most beautiful country ever to be made in the world. So welcome. It is significant that the G20 Leaders Summit later this year will be convened for the first time on African soil. This in many ways highlights the growing importance of the African continent in global economic, political, and environmental discussions that are ensuing around the world. Africa is home to some of the world's fastest growing economies, and in many ways faces unique challenges such as the impact of climate change, developmental needs that it has, and the effects of global trade dynamics. This summit's location underscores the need for African voices to be heard on critical global issues like sustainable development, the digital economy, and the shift towards the green energy. It is a great opportunity, too, to promote greater collaboration between African nations and the rest of the world. But it is also a great opportunity for all of us as members of the G20 and invited countries to engage in serious dialogue. Geopolitical tensions and rising intolerance, conflict and war, climate change, pandemics, and energy and food insecurity do threaten an already fragile global coexistence.
I tell you what, I made the note about the president saying the most beautiful country in the world, and I'm not going to argue with him about that, but I'll tell you what, I would just love it. I just love it one day if our president can pronounce, and the world will believe it, when he says, welcome to the champion nation of the world, where everything works. We're the champions of safety and security. We're the champions of top quality education. We're the champions of eliminating inequality. We're the champions of sport. We're the champions of everything. If we can get to a situation where we can do all of that, where we've eradicated all the social ills of the world, and we are South Africa, now that would be the day I would want to be next to the president of our country. However, the president then spoke about the principles of the UN Charter and that vital role it plays regarding, the nations of the world.
This year marks 80 years since the United Nations was founded and the UN Charter was adopted. The United Nations was established to reaffirm fundamental human rights, to promote social progress, and to save successive generations from the scourge of war. While these essential goals of the United Nations remain, the world has changed in fundamental ways. The UN must also change accordingly. We continue to call for the UN Security Council, the multilateral trading system, and the international financial architecture to be realigned, to be reformed, to make them more representative, more agile, and more responsive to today's global realities. As the G20, it is critical that the principles of the UN Charter, multilateralism, and international law should remain at the center of all our endeavors. It should be the glue that keeps us together. The conflicts between Russia and Ukraine, conflicts that's raging in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in the Sudan, in the Sahel, and in Gaza, continue to exact heavy human toll and heighten global insecurity. South Africa welcomes the ceasefire agreement reached between Israel and Hamas as a crucial first step towards ending the severe humanitarian crisis faced by the Palestinian people in Gaza. This ceasefire must lay the basis for a just and lasting peace in line with UN resolutions, in line with international law and internationally agreed parameters. As the G20, we must continue to advocate for diplomatic solutions to conflicts. Our own experience as South Africa is that the peaceful resolution of conflict through inclusive dialogue is the foremost guarantor of sustainable and lasting peace.
And then the president touched on what for many of us we amplify all the time, whether it's the United Nations or G20, of course, all the BRICS coming together of the nations. It is all, and it should be, about solidarity.
In the end, we will find that through solidarity, we've been able to make progress as humanity. Through fostering equality, we've been able to be real humans. And through engendering sustainability, we have a better future as humans on this planet ahead of us. This task is now in our hands as the G20 family, and I do believe the various meetings we are going to hold throughout the year, this one being one of the key ones, will lead us in the direction that we all seek to move in.
Now to the business of the day. The Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, of course, hosting the meeting, then outlined the priorities for the day.
A very warm South African welcome to Nasrec Expo Center, Johannesburg, South Africa, for the first foreign ministers meeting of the G20 in 2025 on the African soil. It is also the first G20 foreign ministers meeting happening in the African continent. We have no doubt that during your stay in our beautiful country, you will experience its captivating beauty, as well as the warmth, friendly, and the diversity of its people. We are gathered here in the hall named Under the Tree. In African folklore and communities, we gather under a tree to have difficult conversations that challenges us. I hope that this hall will present a good platform for all the G20 participants to engage robustly to find solutions to global challenges. Let me first take this opportunity to thank His Excellency Ambassador Mario Vieira, the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Brazil, for hosting me and my delegation during the G20 handover ceremony in Brasilia, which took place immediately after the successful Leaders Summit that was held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in November last year. South Africa continues to look forward to your guidance as members of the Troika as we navigate through our G20 presidency. In the same breath, I would like also to welcome the incoming member of the Troika, the United States of America. We are confident that this new Troika will be a source of wisdom as we seek to steer the work of the G20 to a successful conclusion. South Africa looks forward to your support and continued contribution. As we have seen in the program that has already been circulated, our meeting today commences with this opening session as well as two main sessions. In the first session, we will discuss the global geopolitical situation, while in the second session, we will deliberate on South Africa's G20 priorities and high-level deliverables. It is our hope that we will have rich and productive engagement on these issues, setting the tone for the remainder of the South Africa's G20 presidency in the lead-up to the November 2025 Leaders Summit.
Okay, we'll have further comments from you, but we'll change on other issues regarding KZN after this.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than sticking to your New Year's resolution to eat healthy, then immediately reaching for the leftover pizza in the fridge and deciding it's a reward for surviving day one. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
The Chili Boys have a top-class game plan to relocate from the bottom half. But Babina Noko prefer a position in the top 5. This is the Betway Premiership. United battles it out with United. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game. Chipa United FC versus Sikukune United FC. This Saturday, 22 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Dr. Malava, you are a genius, man.
Dr. Malava speaking. How can I soothe your heart today?
Hey, Stock. Mabebezo says I'm not romantic enough, and with Valentine's Day coming up, I want to brush up on my romantic talk.
Ah, Uncle Mo, I've got you covered. Or better yet, I'll have you improve on your game and have you all set.
Oh, Doc, what are you saying now?
Grab a tennis racket, a bottle of water, and some fresh green fluffy tennis balls, Malume.
Tennis racket, tennis balls. How is that supposed to help?
In the arena, Serena Williams will have you saying 15 love, 30 love, 40 love. It's love everywhere, Malume. Catch In the Arena. Serena Williams, Sundays at 7 p.m. Starts 9 February, only on S3.
Okay, things change by the minute here on the National Pulse. The President, Ramaphosa, is addressing the media at the G20 Foreign Ministers Summit. Let's drop in on that right away.
From China as well as from Russia. And we had very good bilateral discussions, and all of them expressed a great deal of support for South Africa's hosting of the G20, and they want to be as supportive as they possibly can, and have also embraced our priorities, which they are in great support of. And that was heartening to hear all these important, and all countries are important, no doubt. And also I met the Foreign Secretary of the UK. So that was also a very good exchange, and we discussed a variety of issues, both global and national, between ourselves and those countries. So I'm rather pleased that I have had the occasion to be at this Foreign Ministers Summit and to have a very good exchange with them. South Africa, as I said, we are truly honored to have this moment and opportunity to head the G20. And we are also very pleased to be in a troika with Brazil and the United States, as we have taken over from Brazil and will execute our responsibilities during the course of the year. As you know, there will be more than 100 meetings that will be taking place through the length and the breadth of South Africa, and culminating with the Leaders' Summit, which will be held here in Johannesburg. And thereafter, we will have the pleasure of handing over to the United States of America, who will then take over the presidency of the G20, and we will continue working with them as part of the Troika, as the previous presidency of the G20 also becomes part of the Troika, and the incoming one the following year also becomes part of the Troika. So we look forward to good cooperation and good interchange amongst all of us, and I do believe that the priorities and the themes that we have set out are clearly achievable, and already we're getting a good sense that there will be thoroughgoing discussions through a number of, if you like, sub-themes and various forums that will touch on various aspects of the priorities that we have set out through our various government ministries, as well as private sector, as well as social communities organizations. So we gung-ho as South Africa, we're raring to go, and this has been a really good start. There have been other meetings in other parts of the country touching on labor and a whole number of other issues. The next week it will be Treasury or Finance in Cape Town, and I will also have the honor to be present as they meet. So the ball is rolling. The G20 machinery is now underway, and as South Africa, we've been participating in all of them throughout the various years that we've been part of the G20, and this year we are president of the G20 process, and we are rather pleased with that. Yesterday, we were meant to present the budget of our own country to our parliament, and discussions that ensued prior to that presentation in both the leaders of the Government of National Unity and also Cabinet gave a clear indication that some of the proposals that were being put forward would not be favorably accepted, and Cabinet then felt that we should postpone the presentation of the budget. Now, we are in a Government of Unity system now, and in the end, no one party can be able to truly impose anything without much negotiation and discussion. And being in a Government of National Unity, by definition, means that you've got to work with others. You've got to take others along. You've got to build consensus. And we've got to ensure that we do indeed forge a unity. And in the end, that came to fruition. And that, in many ways, should not be seen as a crisis. Other people have described this or characterized this as a crisis. Budgets in many countries are possibly the most important event that happens. Even in your more mature democracies, they often have budget hiccups. They often have budget mini crises, which they are then compelled to sit back and resolve and find and build consensus. And that, what happened yesterday, is in many ways the maturation of our own democracy. And some people have said that this is democracy at work, and I would tend to agree. And there are many lessons that all of us would have learned about the process that ensued yesterday. So one can distinguish that between the form in which everything happened and also the substance of what was going to be presented to the nation. With regard to the form, many lessons that we would have learned, and if anyone were to get terrified, I would say there's no fatality. This is not a fatal fallout. The Government of National Unity is sustaining this. It will continue working, and we are going to go back to the drawing board and find one another. We've been through a number of other near crises that threatened the existence of the Government of National Unity. This is not one of those that will threaten the existence of the Government of National Unity. It is a hiccup that we are going to get over. And we've already set a date for the presentation of the budget on the 12th of March. Now, if you may want to scan the world, you'll find that in other countries, differences over budgets lead to the fall of governments. I can think of one, a recent one, Germany. They had a coalition government, as they call it, and they differed over the budget, and the government collapsed, and they're now having to go and hold elections. The same thing has happened in many other countries. In our own country, in municipalities, in metros, there are often real serious challenges over budgets. So budgets are moments when the actors become wide awake, and they want to be consulted and find consensus so that they can move their entities forward. And we are going to do precisely that. But what this moment also presents to us as South Africans is to raise a level of consciousness amongst all of us as South Africans about the substance of what the minister was going to present. The substance has to do with how we fund our priorities, where we find the money to fund our ambitions. And no Minister of Finance ever gets to a point where they will just willy-nilly raise taxes without getting to a point where they may believe that they have no other alternatives. And I have never met a person who wants to pay more taxes in our country and I guess in the world. So nobody wants to pay more taxes. But this moment also presents us with an issue frontally that we need to confront, the trade-offs that we have to embrace. Right now, we've got limited revenue limits. Our revenue, as it stands, is not able to fund every priority, every ambition that we have. So the Minister of Finance scrounges around to find money. So, in the end, as South Africans, we therefore need to sit back and say, how are we going to stop? And I think the Minister of Finance sought to address this yesterday. How are we going to get over the budget cuts? How are we going to continue funding all our priorities? The public servant salaries, the teachers, the nurses, the doctors, and the SRD, the grants that we've been paying to unemployed people. So the debate and the discussion needs to ensue around issues like that. And I do believe that that leads us to a moment of becoming more economically conscious, economically more aware and knowledgeable as the people of South Africa, and be able to determine exactly how we want to give the people of this country a better life and how we are going to proceed to deal with the challenges of low growth, of unemployment, of supporting the livelihoods of our people, and making sure that we do indeed become the country that we want to be. So those are the two issues. The one was the form in which it all happened, where lessons are drawn. The other one is the substance of our finances that we need to engage with as South Africans, as political parties, but I'd like to say even as South Africans. In other countries, particularly in your northern democracy countries, much of their politicking revolves around the economy, much of their politicking revolves around the budget and how money, public money, is going to be dispensed, utilized. And in our case, I believe that we need to mature to that level as well, where we will focus on the issues that really matter in uplifting the livelihoods of South Africans. And I see a silver lining in what happened yesterday, because it then delivers us to a moment when every South African, whether living in the township, the rural area, wherever, becomes more conscious and aware of how our livelihoods can be improved and how money can be utilized to achieve that objective. Other than that, we continue to foster the peace in the Eastern DRC, and the East African and SADC summit, the joint summit, resolved that the chiefs of the Defense Force should meet, and that meeting is soon going to get underway so that we can consolidate the ceasefire and ensure that there is peace finally in the Eastern DRC. There continue to be a number of challenges which are being addressed on an ongoing basis. And I rest my case when it comes to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
May I go home now?
Thank you very
Okay, so that's the president briefing the media, and there's a Q&A, and there are, I'm trying to count how many hands. I can see 6 from where I'm sitting, and I'm not in the auditorium. I think if I had a wide pan view, I would probably see a whole lot more, right? So what may come out of that Q&A, because you know presidents of our country hardly ever do Q&A, so I won't say it's unprecedented, but it is most unusual, something that we call for every single day. What is unusual is that Tumi does sport 5 minutes later. But the sport must go on, isn't it, Tumi? Go ahead.
Definitely, and we know what the draw
Hold
entails.
on. Phineas says, well, I have to set you up for sport.
Oh.
You can't just like, it's like.
No, I was actually going to go to him. I'm just saying that we know the draw. We've been waiting for the CAF
Phineas is
Champions
very
League draw.
clear that you have to say, on your marks, get set, go, and then he gives us the go-ahead, then you go.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Right, Tumi, now it's your turn.
Phineas, thank you very much. I was just saying that we know the outcome of the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. In terms of Mamelodi Sundowns, they're going to face Esperance in quarterfinal 3, and MC Alger have been drawn against Orlando Pirates. In terms of the other fixtures, Al Ahly take on Al Hilal, and Pyramids FC, they're going to face AS FAR. In terms of the CAF Confederations quarterfinals, Stellenbosch FC have been drawn against defending champions Zamalek in the quarterfinals, and the other fixtures, ASEC Mimosas versus RS Berkane in quarterfinal 3, CS Constantine versus USM Alger, and Al Mazari versus Simba. So that is that with regards to the CAF draw. Then still staying in football, Cape Town City are looking to finalize the signature of Tulani Serero next week. Serero has been training with the club over the past weeks and flew to the United Arab Emirates to finish off some personal stuff. If he does join City, it will be a return to the mother city as he left Ajax Cape Town in 2011. Then Spain's former Football Federation boss Luis Rubiales has been found guilty of sexual assault for kissing player Jenny Hermoso without her consent and ordered to pay a fine of 10,800 euros. He was acquitted of coercion for allegedly trying to pressure Hermoso into saying publicly that the kiss was consensual. The ruling also banned Rubiales from going within 200-meter radius of Hermoso and from communicating with her for 1 year. In boxing, Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, has promised an improved budget for Boxing South Africa in the next fixal. Speaking at the 2-day boxing convention in East London, a first in 12 years, McKenzie says that the current budget for BSA doesn't serve any purpose for the sport.
It's true what was said here. I've inherited a budget. In 3 weeks to 4 weeks, it's time for me to tell you what is my budget, as you said right here. And it's only then that you will see how serious do I take boxing. Boxing's days back to glory shall find expression in my budget. So that day you must tune in and you will see what is it that we are going to do.
And finally, in tennis, Mira Andreeva beat world number 2 Iga Swiatek for the first time in her career with a dominant 6-3 and 6-3 victory in the Dubai Duty Free Championships. With her victory, the 17-year-old moved into the first WTA 1000 semi-final of her career, while Swiatek became another top seed to exit the tournament. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. I'll be back again tomorrow.
Tomorrow, I thought you were going to sing a song. It rhymes with that favorite song, and I can't sing well, else I would say it tomorrow. No. All right, you said your goodbyes, right?
Yeah, let me say goodbye. Ke nna Tumeng Kapele. Modimo ke yo.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 northbound in Bedfordview queuing on the link to the N12 east at Gilulis interchange. The M1 southbound is slow moving towards Boysons. The N1 southbound in Centurion queuing towards Buerta Avenue exit. In Pretoria, the N14 northbound has delays towards the R101 interchange, and Eskamper Clearly Drive northbound has delays towards Mabopane Highway. In KZN, the N2 southbound has a stationary vehicle before Spaghetti Junction. The N3 eastbound is queuing towards Ashburton, and the N3 westbound has a stationary truck reported at Ashburton. Chris Hani Road westbound is queuing at the N2 highway, and Bayard Road westbound has truck congestion reported towards South Coast Road. In the Eastern Cape, on the N2, a police incident reported south of Butterworth, so expect delays. In Cape Town, the N7 checks Harold Drive southbound, slow moving at Voortrekker Road. The M3 southbound is slow moving towards Rhodes Drive, and the M5 southbound slow moving towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, Jimmy, you've got a show coming up in 15 minutes. Set the scene for us.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. It seems markets are finding their sense. Once again, we look at the Rand coming back down to levels it was at before that budget speech was set to be tabled yesterday. But we are going to be looking at those market movements in a moment. What's coming up on the show, though, is we're going to be speaking to the joint CEO at Blue Label Telecoms around their increase the increase of their stake in Cell C. They've now bumped up that stake to 73%. So we're going to look at that and see what's happening there. We're going to speak to the CEO of Goldfields around their results. They gave us a 12-month update for the year ended December 2024. We've also got a conversation with the team at Supersport around the business of broadcasting, or sports broadcasting in particular. We're going to look at some of the business models there and what could potentially be working for them. We've also got a conversation with Standard Bank around the state of the South African middle class or the South African working class and how they are seeing that based on a report that their team at Liberty put together. And then we wrap up the show with an SME, as we do every Thursday. We're going to speak to the founder and CEO of a company called Wello Health. Some really interesting health tech that is going on there. So we've got a full show lined up for our listeners a little later on. But for now, let me give you a quick summary of what's been moving the markets, or how the markets have been moving, rather. If we look at equity markets, all of them were in the red, with the exception of the DAX in Germany and the CAC 40 in France. All Asian markets were in the red. The FTSE was in the red. The Nasdaq is currently in the red to the tune of almost a full %. The S&P 500 is in the red, 2/3%. And surprise, surprise, local markets are in the green. Industrials up 0.15%. Resources up 3.4%, and financials closing the day out 0.45% in the red. As a result of that big move in resource counters, the all shares up about 2/3%, and the top 40 is up 0.75%. Platinum and palladium pricing still around that $1,000 level. Brent crude $76.54 a barrel. Big mover of the day, I suppose, is the gold price, back at $2,936 a fine ounce at the moment. As I said, the Rand is holding its ground against the US dollar, back at 18 Rand and 39 cents. One British pound will cost you 23 Rand 24. 1 euro 19 Rand 25. 1 Australian dollar 11 Rand 75. 1 Bitcoin $97,000 or $97,208, around 1.787 million rand. I'm going to be breaking down these and other market movements with a wealth manager from Sanlam Private Wealth, and we're going to be taking a look at what's been driving some of those commodities movements throughout the day. But for now, Ashraf, back to you.
Okay, perfect. You have a great show, 6 to 7, with Jimmy Moyaha and the SFM market update. We'll get to an important issue around developments in KZN with regards to expenditures. We talk that and Scopa after this.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So here's a story, important, or rather important. Various departments in KwaZulu-Natal are meeting with the provincial legislature Scopa, so that means KZN Scopa, to report on how they've implemented legislature resolutions relating to how they handle this all-important public funds. That's one issue. The other is the issue of the Itala Bank, which I understand has been huge support for. Let's find out more about it with Tim Brodersath, who's the chairperson of Scopa in KZN's provincial legislature. Tim, appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting to us here on the National Pulse.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and afternoon to all your listeners.
Thank you. So tell us what has sparked this off in terms of understanding the issues of KZN Scopa and the issues of handling public funds.
Well, Ashraf, in the current term of the KZN legislature, we first engaged with various entities and departments in October last year. One of those entities was Itala, SOC, and we traversed a number of areas of concern that have been raised by the Auditor General. And today was the follow-up with Itala regarding the resolutions that we took in the legislature asking Itala to provide us information on various issues. So today was a follow-up hearing with Itala.
So let's talk about Itala first. So what is the position with Itala? Because I also understand as we talk, there has been quite a bit of support from people within KZN for Itala.
Look, there is a huge amount of support for Itala, and in fact, the committee today made it quite clear to Itala that despite all the difficulties surrounding the matter, the committee is firmly of the view, in fact, all political parties united, that we need to try and do everything to keep Itala going, keep them a going concern, simply because of the thousands, 250,000 clients of Itala, ranging from grannies in villages to small businesses, to taxi operations that rely on Itala's financing. The issue arose essentially when Itala in 2022 was advised that they had an exemption from the Banks Act, but that they had to comply with various regulations in order to keep that exemption. The Prudential Authority, which is a creature of the South African Reserve Bank, assessed their application for the exemption and found that they were not compliant with all the aspects that the Minister of Finance and the Prudential Authority determined. And so the matter limped along, and it got to a point, which was the 15th of December 2023, where the exemption expired. And in terms of the legislation, which is the Banks Act, in Section 83 and 84 of the Banks Act, a repayment administrator was appointed to take over all the funds that Itala held, ostensibly to protect depositors. This has obviously caused quite a disruption, and effectively folks cannot get hold of the funds at the moment. Employees, there's difficulty with employees being paid, etc., etc. So what Scopa was trying to get to the bottom of today was what was done wrong on the part of Itala in the run-up to this, but also what solutions can be found to protect those depositors, because some people are in really dire situations.
Yeah.
So that's effectively what we discussed today. It was quite a robust engagement, Ashraf. There were times when myself and Dr. Tulani Vilakazi were going head-to-head on certain issues, but I believe it was a good engagement in terms of bringing out some of the salient facts around the matter, and hopefully it will go forward in a positive fashion.
Okay.
We couldn't get into too much detail on some of the issues, particularly the solvency of Itala, because some of these matters are before the courts at the moment.
Okay.
And we didn't want to do anything that could jeopardize things.
And therefore,
but
in terms
Yeah,
I was saying in terms of that robust engagement that you had anyway, right? But a very important one. What then did you agree on?
So what we've agreed on is, number one, the committee supports Itala in a very interesting situation, Ashraf, because you've got the law on the one hand, which is very clear and it's very specific. But on the other hand, you've got people and their livelihoods. Their lives, literally their lives and their livelihoods. So what we are calling for here is a solution, perhaps if you want to call it a political solution, that will preserve all the funds owed to depositors by Itala Bank, and at the same time try and move forward with legislative reform which would make space for institutions and entities like Itala to be community banks. And Dr. Vilakazi and I, at the end of the hearing today, committed to each other that we're going to try and work together because he is a banking expert, and I'm a legislator, to try and work together to work out and explore how we can perhaps bring legislation into the South African ecosystem that will make space for community banks like Itala, like the now defunct VBS, which provide community services to communities.
All right,
Yeah, so
that
where we
story
are
will
now.
run. Right, then what about those, implementation of legislature resolutions from various departments within KZN? What can you tell us about that?
Well, okay, so now we're looking at the broader picture. Effectively, as I said, in October, we met with about 9 departments and various entities, and we raised concerns with them that had been raised by the Auditor General and asked them to report back to us on various matters. Amongst others, probably the most important is consequence management. We often get very vague reports from departments that they're applying consequence management, they're going after certain people, but one of our key concerns is that when we really have to press on this, we get very vague reports. They don't tell us that Mr. X did this and Mr. X went through disciplinary and there's a criminal action against them and civil recovery. So that's where we put the departments under a fair amount of pressure to say, look, we need this level of assurance that you actually are going after people and making them accountable for their actions, not only to this committee, but to the people of KwaZulu-Natal, so they can see, well, if people step out of line, something actually happens. So that's one of our key roles, and that's one of the things. When we say a legislature resolution, after the October hearings, we had a debate in the legislature where the legislature unanimously, across all the political divide, adopted our report and said, yes, please go back to these departments and get answers on these issues.
Okay, let's leave it at that. I think that story is certainly one we will follow up on. Appreciate you giving off your time. That's Tim Broterseth, the chairperson of SCOPA in KZN, in the KZN Provincial Legislature, responding, in fact, to the SCOPA report that now calls on the various departments within that region to implement legislature resolutions. All of that around, I think, the big issue about just good governance and expenditure in those regions. We have time for some of your comments. We'll do it after this.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Of course, some of the programming changed because of the President's address at the G20. These things do happen, so my apologies. Means less calls today. I'm sorry.
And in addition, being a single parent myself, 2 of my daughters were at university at almost the same time. I didn't have money to pay for them. I had to take loans, and in some instances, they received bursaries that could cover tuition. One who was at UP got this hardship funding of some sort to take her to school. So I want to make a difference in someone else's life because someone else made a difference in my life and the lives of my children. Bye.
Oh, well, there we are. You see, we've had so many like that, and I know we have to revisit this conversation tomorrow because of because we have to shift to the President's address. It meant we have to take less calls on this issue. But if you're in, I think drop us that email just so we get a sense of where we are. studio@safm.co.za, and that doesn't go away. There's even more comments on that.
Hello, Ashraf and SFM listeners. Ashraf, the idea of donating to a fund is very brilliant, but to be honest with you, in South Africa, we are still not there. If Ashraf, all the tenderpreneurs who were filling the basement with Ferraris were to do that, we should be at another level. The other thing, Ashraf, you staying in the location, someone doesn't want to go and buy at a spaza shop that is owned by another black person simply because he or she will say, I'm giving him money. So we are still far away from that concept. Thanks, James Johannesburg.
Well, listen, James, I mean, I hear you. I'm saying to you, whether it's 20 people who support it or 100 people or 1 million people or 10 million people, there are people who are listening who are dependent on what we do. It won't materialize in one day, but there are people dependent on what we do. It's the type of groundbreaking decisions that they just have to be made, isn't it?
Hi, Ashraf. Good afternoon. I'm a person with disability. I'm a living testimony. I have to drop out from University of the Free State due to lack of funds. I was wasn't managed to get a bursary. I took only 5 months there. And apparently now the University of Free State, they say I owed them around 40,000. I'm not working, but I still wish to study. But I don't know what to do, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you see, I mean, that's exactly the point. I'm so sorry about your plight. That's the reality that South Africans are facing every single day of their lives.
Brashraf and Fellows FM listeners, good evening. My name is Tulani Nzima in Croydon. For me, before we even talk about supporting universities, because they are the one who are going to be recipient of these monies, we have to ask them two questions. Why is the majority of their lecturers foreigners? And secondly, why we being taught foreign content? Because if we have professors, if we're to create our own professors and our own content, definitely a large chunk of money would not be paid in dollars and exported out of the country. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I agree with you. I mean, listen, there's 500 things that needs reform. Are we going to withhold? It's not the universities that benefit, it's the learners. Are we going to withhold monies to them because you want to know who's the lecturer? I mean, really?
I think there's the same story where our Judge Zondo was held by a man in a small town in Kokstad, if I remember correctly, Maliv in Maritzburg.
Yeah, I think that's the point that I referred to. I'm not sure whether it's Kokstad, but it's a Mr. Bucks, which is ironic with the name Mr. Bucks, who lent him or offered him financial support in some way or the other, don't you think? But yeah, interesting one indeed. Here's another comment, the last one.
Hi, Ashraf Mungezi Cengani. My issue is the big corporates that are exempted from paying the minimum wage. So there's this one big fried chicken company that pays 25 rand. So if you may invite Department of Labor to come and explain why would such big corporates be exempted from paying the current 27 rand 58 an hour. Why?
Okay, I'm going to get Temba and Keys to make a note of it. I don't know. Why would they be exempt? Really, why? I don't know. Why?
Hello, Ashraf. If you say, if you couldn't pay your fees and somebody illogically paid you, it doesn't sound right. How is it illogical if someone helps somebody who can't pay their fees? Maybe you should say, if they uncapitalistically helped you, not illogically.
Okay, that's the show. There's many more WhatsApps. I can't play them, unfortunately. We just don't have enough time today. Real apology. We'll make it up for you tomorrow. We'll try our best. And I think we need to revisit this conversation of building, a broad-based fundraising scheme that can change the lives of people. So bring on your ideas. Let's see what happens. That's the National Pulse, and the Pulse continues on air and off air. Let's do it again tomorrow. Here's the news. It's 6 o'clock. Here's Greg House.
Thank you again, Ashraf. South Africa speaks on Ukraine conflict, and Spain's former football chief found guilty over kiss. Good evening. South Africa says it's important for the international community to push for an inclusive process in Ukraine with the aim of ending the war. Russia and US officials met on Tuesday to discuss processes of peace talks without inviting the country in question. The Director General of the Department